Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump hosting the president of Turkey at the White House. We zoom in on their discussions from trade to fighter jet purchases to the war in Ukraine. Officials say preliminary evidence suggests a suspected shooter in Dallas was targeting ICE. One detainee is dead while two others remain in critical condition. The Senate is at a deadlock days ahead of a government shutdown deadline. Why Democrats and Republicans can't see eye to eye on federal funding and what each side is demanding. U.S. economy growth has been revised up as the U.S. has implemented its trade deal with the EU. An expert joins us ahead to look at the impacts. The U.S. reports intercepting 4 Russian military planes off Alaska today. How Washington is responding. A French court has sentenced former President Nicolas Sarkozy to prison. The verdict tied to claims of Libyan money in his campaign.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. President Trump, in his meeting with Turkish President Erdogan, talks about possible charges for former FBI Director James Comey.
Well, I can't tell you what's going to happen because I don't know. You have very professional people headed up by the Attorney General and Todd Blanche and Lindsay Halligan, who's very smart, good lawyer, very good lawyer. They're going to make a determination. I'm not making that determination. I think I'd be allowed to get involved if I want, but I don't really choose to do so. He did terrible things at the FBI, and but I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen.
The Justice Department could soon announce an indictment against Comey. Media reports say one indictment could include allegations of lying to Congress in 2020. This came up from the Trump administration's investigation into the FBI's Crossfire hurricane. That operation tried to discredit Trump's 2016 campaign by falsely tying him to Russia. Some updates on the shooting yesterday at the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility in Dallas. A shooter with a rifle opened fire from a nearby roof, killing one detainee and wounding another before taking his own life. Officials have confirmed the suspect as 29-year-old Joshua Yan. FBI Director Kash Patel gave more details this morning. In an X post, Patel said the agency is able to confirm that Yan downloaded a document containing a list of DHS facilities. He said the suspect conducted multiple searches of ballistics and the Charlie Kirk shot video between September 23rd and 24th. In August, he searched apps that tracked the presence of ICE agents. Patel added that further accumulated evidence indicates a high degree of pre-attack planning. Here's DHS Secretary Kristi Noem at an interview with Fox News last night.
Well, we can tell you that he was on an elevated rooftop, that he shot into a building, into a carport area, that he was targeting ICE based on what we've seen as far as evidence so far in this case. We see this kind of violence out on our streets every day. We see people that have been targeting our law enforcement officers across the country, not just in their rhetoric, but also in their actions out on the streets.
This archived mugshot of him dates back to 2016. It reportedly stemmed from an offense he committed a year earlier. Still images show bullet holes inside the ICE office in Dallas after the shooting. Yan's older brother, Noah, also told media outlets that he didn't know his brother's motive. President Trump has weighed in after the deadly shooting, calling for an end to, quote, rhetoric against ICE and America's law enforcement. He also commented on the shooting while taking a question during his meeting with Turkey's president.
The radical left is causing this problem, not the right, the radical left. And it's going to get worse, and ultimately it's going to go back on them. I mean, bad things happen when they play these games. And I'll give you a little clue. The right is a lot tougher than the left. But the right's not doing this. They're not doing it. And they better not get them energized because it won't be good for the left. And I don't want to see that happen either. I'm the president of all the people. But the radical left is causing this. The radical left Democrats are causing this problem. And it gets worse. It gets worse. And it'll be a point where other people won't take it anymore. And that will not be good for the radical left. And we don't want that.
Antifa back in the spotlight. President Trump yesterday announced that he would be signing a new executive order to dismantle the group's networks in the U.S. Trump earlier this week signed an order declaring the left-wing group a domestic terrorist organization. Antifa acts through decentralized cells. Members have been spotted engaging in violence during protests, especially those related to Black Lives Matter or opposing Trump. They generally subscribe to extreme political views that are communist or anarchist. President Trump is hosting the president of Turkey, Tayyip Erdogan, at the White House. They're set to discuss trade and military agreements in a meeting.
He's built a tremendous military, powerful military, uses a lot of our equipment, and it's an honor to have him at the White House. We're going to have a lunch together. We're going to have a discussion, big discussion. We do a lot of trade with Turkey, and we're going to continue. We're going to do some additional trade. They want to buy F-16s, F-35s, and some other things, and we're going to talk to them about that.
Trump says he has a great relationship with Erdogan, especially on military and trade. The war in Ukraine and potential tariffs on Russia are also on the table. Turkey is a NATO ally, but also keeps a close relationship with Russia. Trump says he'd like to have Turkey stop buying oil and gas from Russia.
7,818 people were killed last week, mostly military people, their people, and Ukrainians. More Russians, actually, than Ukraine, a little bit more. But it's such a waste of human life, and so he ought to stop. Putin ought to stop. And with that, we'll get to a little bit of a discussion. We're going to make some great trade deals for both countries. We do a lot of business with Turkey. They build great products.
Trump said he's disappointed in Russian President Vladimir Putin for not stopping the war and also disappointed in NATO allies that continue to buy Russian oil. But he noted that NATO members agreed to increase defense spending and the alliance is stronger than ever. The president also highlighted that Erdogan could have a big influence in stopping the war, and the best he could do is to stop buying Russian oil. On the Israel-Hamas war, the president said he had good meetings with the leaders of Middle Eastern countries and a deal could be close. The U.S. reports intercepting 4 Russian military planes off Alaska today as the latest reported threat to NATO airspace by Moscow. The U.S. says it responded by mobilizing 9 aircraft of different kinds. The Russian planes reportedly remained in international airspace and did not enter U.S. or Canadian territory. But they entered the Alaskan Air Defense Identification Zone. That's an area of international airspace that requires the ready identification of all aircraft for national security purposes. President Trump met with Turkish President Erdogan today. Joining us now to discuss is Emel Akan, senior White House correspondent for the Epoch Times, and we have Gerard Filitti, Middle East affairs analyst and attorney specializing in international law. Good afternoon to you both. First of all, Emel, I'll start with you today. What can you tell us about this meeting?
Thank you, Don, for having me. Today, as you said, President Trump welcomed Turkey's President Erdogan. He's hosting him at the White House, and they will be having lunch as well. And this is a crucial meeting for both leaders. And I think it's important for Erdogan to have this meeting because there's a sanction going on Turkey's military industrial complex. So they have to resolve that. And that is because of the purchase of in 2019, the purchase of Russian air defense system. And Trump said during the meeting, before their bilateral meeting today, said that he is open to discussing that and he's open to lifting that sanction. But he has some requests from Erdogan as well. So that's an interesting meeting for Trump. And we will have to see at the end of the meeting, they will discuss, they will release and inform us about what they have agreed on.
So, Gerard, can we go into a bit more of the specifics of this meeting? For example, how significant, in your opinion, is Turkey's potential purchase of Boeing aircraft?
It's a very significant motivator for Turkey to change some of its behavior. Even though Turkey is a NATO ally, it's a member of NATO and has been a long-time U.S. ally, it is not always aligned on U.S. foreign policy. It does significant trade with Russia. Its businesses buying gas from Russia. About 45% of Turkey's domestic gas comes from Russia. This is one way that Russia is able to evade sanctions and pay for its war in Ukraine by its trade dealings with Turkey. So by dangling that prospect of the U.S. restarting negotiations to sell advanced weaponry to Turkey, like F-35 stealth fighters, for example, that is the carrot on the table for Turkey to back away from some of its dealings with Russia and to help that align more with the U.S. policy interests in the region.
So, Emel, you've been following this meeting closely. Is there any one point that actually stood out to you the most?
Yeah, I think the tone of the meeting was interesting. And at some point, Trump said that Erdogan is a very opinionated leader, and he said that he doesn't like opinionated people, but he likes Erdogan. So the tone of the meeting was positive, and he's willing to show some help. He's willing to help the Turkish leader about sanctions. And of course, this Boeing deal is very important. Right before the meeting, we learned from the Turkish Airlines chairman that they are in the process of purchasing 250 aircraft from Boeing, and that is a significant deal for Trump. So overall, everything was positive during the meeting, and Trump also acknowledged the past experience with Erdogan about the 2018 incident where Pastor Branson was held in detention center in Turkey, and he acknowledged the crisis. Trump acknowledged the crisis back then and his harsh words towards Erdogan, but he acknowledged that since then the relationship has improved. So that was a remarkable meeting when you look at the history of the relationship between both leaders.
So, Gerard, can we get your view on how you would describe the current relationship between the U.S. and Turkey under the Trump administration? Perhaps you can compare that with previous administrations.
Well, I think with Trump, it's more unpredictable than it has been with other administrations. And one of the factors here has been Trump's support with Netanyahu in Israel. There's been a growing distance between Turkey and Israel as well. So I think Trump's approach towards Turkey has been conciliatory in many ways, looking to redevelop trade deals and develop and strengthen a trade relationship, as with Boeing, as with military technology, as with developing these allyships against Russia and against other factors like China that is actively working in the region to undermine U.S. interests. However, with Trump, it's also catch as catch can because he does have conflicting issues when it comes to what his policies are. So, for example, when he prioritizes Israel and Israel's needs, security needs, sometimes that comes at the expense of the relationship with Turkey. When he prioritizes his relationship with Turkey, on the other hand, that is beneficial to other interests in the area, including Qatar. So Trump is taking a very nuanced look here. I think that he is being very carefully optimistic about long-term relationships, especially economic and military ties with Turkey, and is returning to more traditional diplomacy where Turkey is an ally, but we understand that it doesn't always do things in the American interest.
So, Emel, can you comment on what Gerard said, and can you talk about what does Trump want from Erdogan and vice versa?
Yeah, so during this meeting, Trump will and during the meeting, actually, before the bilateral meeting, Trump said that he was looking forward to working with Erdogan on key regional issues. He said during the meeting that Erdogan remains neutral in Ukraine-Russia war, and he basically highlighted that, and he said that he seeks his help. On Gaza issue as well, as mentioned, Trump has a tremendous influence in the region and over Arab leaders, other Muslim leaders. So he wants to see Erdogan on his side when trying to resolve this Gaza conflict. And he also highlighted the fact that as a NATO ally, Turkey is the third largest purchaser of Russian oil and gas. So he wants to see that end, and he highlighted that as well. So I think we saw that Trump, during the UN General Assembly, said that these NATO allies are actually fueling the war, supporting the war by purchasing Russian oil, and Turkey is one of the major countries doing that. So I think they will discuss that and probably will come to a conclusion during this meeting about that.
So, Gerard, what are the prospects that Trump will get what he wants from Turkey?
Well, there are good prospects that he will get some of what he wants from Turkey. I think Turkey itself has been moving to diversify its gas imports, relying more on liquefied natural gas from the U.S. and Algeria, on pipeline from Qatar. So there is a likelihood that Turkey will become less of a consumer of Russian oil and gas. However, in the grander scheme, it's in Turkey's interests to be more non-aligned. Even though it is a member of NATO, I don't think it will join the diplomatic fray against Russia with respect to Ukraine. And I think it will maintain its position with respect to Gaza and Palestine and not be the friendliest state towards Israel. So I think Trump will get some of what he wants, but he's not going to get everything.
Okay, Mel, anything you'd like to add there?
Also, during this meeting, F-16s and F-35s are crucial matters for Erdogan, and he will be seeking Trump's help. Now, this is the first time he is at the White House after 6 years. During the Biden administration, he wasn't invited, and the Biden administration was not very friendly with Erdogan, and publicly his Secretary of State, Blinken, criticized Erdogan for being authoritarian. And so this is the first time where Trump is seeing, Erdogan is seeing some relationship here with the administration, and he also wants to seek the Halkbank case resolved. This is a Turkish state bank that is under scrutiny, and this case has been going on for years. It has been sanctioned because of the evasion of Iran sanctions. So there is some things that Erdogan will be looking forward to resolve during this meeting, and he wants Turkey to be part of the F-35 program again, and he's looking forward to resolving that matter. And we don't know what will happen with the Russian air defense system that they bought recently. Nobody knows where the system is at the moment, and it's not been installed yet. So there's still flexibility to solve the problem. So that's what he's going to discuss with and resolve with this administration during this visit.
Okay, so I just have one more question here. Gerard, what is the dynamics right now between Turkey and Russia?
Well, throughout its history, Turkey has played both sides of the street, so to speak. It has maintained cordial relationships with Russia, sometimes being closer to Russia than the West, sometimes the other way around. Turkey doesn't want to be aligned directly with one camp or another. It maintains military exercises with Russia, for example, in regional security, even though it is a NATO member. So for Turkey's connection with Russia, Russia has good products that Turkey wants to use in its military, the S-400 missile system, surface-to-air missile being one example. But at the other side, it does see the benefits of being in NATO and having access to American technology, which is far superior. So for Turkey, it's about Turkey first. And this is language that President Trump certainly understands.
Okay, Gerard and Mel, really appreciate having both of you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Senate is at a deadlock days ahead of a government shutdown deadline. Why Democrats and Republicans can't see eye to eye on federal funding and what each side is demanding. Stay tuned for that and more after the break.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back-in-stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets, only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings, regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queens $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-624-6556 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-624-6556. 1-800-624-6556. Call now.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed.
The clock is ticking toward a potential government shutdown. With the deadline just days away, lawmakers in Washington remain deeply divided. Here's how things stand right now.
With just days before the government funding deadline, Congress remains at a standstill, raising the risk of a shutdown at the end of the month. Republicans, with President Trump's backing, are pushing for what's called a clean continuing resolution, a short-term bill to extend current funding levels without new spending measures. House Republicans passed such a bill last week, extending funding through November 21st.
The 60-vote threshold having not been achieved.
But the Senate rejected it, along with an alternative from Democrats. Senate Republicans will need some Democratic support, but Democrats say they won't back a funding bill unless Republicans reverse nearly $1 trillion in Medicaid cuts tied to last year's tax and spending package. Republicans say the Medicaid cut targets waste, fraud, and abuse. Democrats say millions will lose coverage. Democrats also want to extend Obamacare subsidies for low- and middle-income Americans. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries warned Democrats won't back a funding deal unless healthcare protections are ironclad and in legislation. Jeffries says if a shutdown happens, Republicans will be to blame.
If the government shuts down, it will shut down because Donald Trump and Republicans in the House and the Senate have made that decision.
And the White House is increasing pressure, telling federal agencies to prepare for large-scale firings if a shutdown occurs. In a memo Wednesday night, the Office of Management and Budget said agencies should consider cutting the workforce for programs whose funding would lapse and are not, quote, consistent with the president's priorities. Senate Republicans say Democrats are holding government funding hostage to push for nearly $1 trillion in new spending. Senate Majority Leader John Thune told CNN on Wednesday that Republicans have a bill ready to be passed, but Democrats are hijacking the process.
So this is a short-term extension of existing funding, current funding. The Democrats are trying to hijack it to get $1 trillion in new spending, and I don't think that's a very good deal for the American taxpayer.
For now, both sides remain entrenched. The Senate is not scheduled to return until September 29th, just one day before the deadline.
A new poll says Democrats and Republicans are tied in the New Jersey governor's race. A new poll by Emerson College Pix 11 The Hill shows Democrat Mickey Sherrill and Republican Jet Chittarelli each getting 43% of the vote, while another 11% are undecided. The poll released today comes after the first debate. The pollster noted that the Democrat is doing better among women and younger voters, while the Republican is doing better among men and older voters. Republicans are hoping to flip the governor's seat in the Garden State. President Trump reacted to the poll saying in a Truth Social post, quote, "Jack is tough on crime and cutting taxes. Two things that people really demand today. He will be a great governor. We need Jack in New Jersey." Disney is facing legal threats from a group of shareholders over its suspension of Jimmy Kimmel, following his comments on the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Lawyers representing labor and press groups, including Reporters Without Borders and the American Federation of Teachers, say Disney has 5 days to release internal documents or face a lawsuit. They argued the decision may have violated shareholder interests and free speech principles, especially with 25% of ABC affiliates still refusing to air Kimmel's show. The move triggered a $4 billion drop in Disney's market value last week. Disney has not publicly responded to the demands. Kimmel's Tuesday's return drew over 6 million viewers in a 10-year ratings high, compared to his usually average of around 1.5 million viewers nightly. President Trump is now teasing a lawsuit against ABC following Jimmy Kimmel's return. Trump says he's going to, quote, test ABC out, saying that Kimmel's show could potentially count as a major illegal campaign contribution, as the president calls it a, quote, arm of the Democratic National Committee. In Kimmel's return monologue Tuesday night, Kimmel says that he never intended to make light of Charlie Kirk's killing, but Vice President J.D. Vance says in his response this, listen.
He didn't actually say sorry to Charlie Kirk or his family. And the reason that so many people, including me, were so upset with what Jimmy Kimmel said is that he accused Charlie Kirk's murderer of being a MAGA or a right-wing American. It wasn't a joke. It was straight up disinformation. And I really wish Jimmy Kimmel would apologize for it.
President Trump has already secured $16 million from ABC back in December 2024 as part of the settlement of a defamation lawsuit that the president brought against the network. Meanwhile, a spokesperson for Turning Point USA wrote on X yesterday that Jimmy Kimmel's comments on his show were not sufficient and lacked an apology to Kirk's family. This is after ABC suspended Kimmel's show before reinstating it on Tuesday. President Trump has since criticized ABC on Truth Social for allowing the show back on air. Turning Point USA is on its nationwide campus tour once again after the assassination of its founder, Charlie Kirk. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin honored Kirk's legacy yesterday during a stop at Virginia Tech. He told thousands of students they will carry forward the movement that Kirk built there. Here's the look.
But see, the truth is that the question that has been asked over and over again is, who will be the next Charlie? And as I look out in this room and I see thousands of you, I want to repeat the best answer that I have heard. You will be the next Charlie. All of you. And that is something to take home tonight.
Youngkin said Kirk left behind a blueprint to advance truth in the face of evil. Youngkin also recalled Kirk's faith, telling students they're lights that chase out darkness. And he praised Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica, who has taken up the role of Turning Point CEO. He called her an extraordinary leader with the courage of a lion and the heart of a saint. A closer look at the U.S. economy as growth is revised up and the U.S. enacts trade terms with the EU. Stay tuned for that.
That first time seeing my son, I feel like my life did a 180. I was already trying to change my perspective of life and really just be a father figure that I never had. Being present is the most important part. I'm still growing every day. Becoming a better version of myself. To be the better mirror for my son. I mean, he's just grown. He's becoming his own person. Man, first I saw him dance, bro, he brings the vibes, you know what I'm saying? He brings the party no matter what. He really a definition of like why he loves somebody. And I love him to the death of me.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. My grandpa Lou is the reason why my dad and I started racing, and I'm really proud to follow in his tracks. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. I've learned a lot on this journey with my grandpa Lou, and the memories of my grandpa will always be with me. And in our family, we're used to getting involved, and I encourage you to do the same, especially when it comes to caring for your loved ones. When I think about Alzheimer's and the impact it had on my family, I recognize that losing a race isn't such a bad day after all. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Talking about Alzheimer's can be really tough, but if you notice something, have a conversation with your loved one. Encourage them to see a doctor or offer to go with them. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
There is a road laid out for me.
Boxes everywhere. And this is gonna be Addie's room.
I am blind,
You really don't like it?
I hope so, yeah. I know this road is there for me.
First night here, but Amy seems cool.
Ways down by the river. I am blind, but I need not see.
I got this.
I know this road is there for me.
Okay.
If I'm really free, take me down to the river and wash me.
A tentative deal to keep TikTok operational has been finally reached. President Trump will sign an executive order today approving a new TikTok U.S. joint venture. NTD's Daniel Monahan has key takeaways from the agreement.
The executive order will grant China-based ByteDance a 120-day extension to divest its ownership in TikTok. This gives ByteDance and U.S. investors time to secure regulatory approvals and finalize the agreement. The new joint venture will be governed by a 7-member board. 6 of those seats will be filled by Americans with backgrounds in cybersecurity and national security.
TikTok will be owned by a majority of American investors and controlled by a board of directors with extensive national security and cybersecurity credentials.
The 7th board seat will be held by ByteDance, which will be excluded from security-related decisions. ByteDance will retain less than a 20% stake in the new venture. TikTok has around 170 million monthly users, and the White House estimates the app could contribute nearly $180 billion to U.S. economic growth over the next 4 years. Oracle, already a key data host for TikTok in the U.S., will serve as the venture's trusted technology partner, overseeing the app's source code and all security matters. The White House says Oracle will receive a copy of TikTok's algorithm, retrain it on U.S. data, and monitor it for any signs of foreign interference. ByteDance will no longer control code operations or send U.S. data to China.
All U.S. user data will be stored on servers operated by Oracle in the United States, protected from surveillance or interference by foreign adversaries.
The White House called it great news for the millions of American youth who use TikTok, whose data it says will be safe and secure with the new deal.
But it's also great news for all of the small business owners who have really been able to make a living off of the use of TikTok as well.
In an interview aired Sunday, President Trump confirmed that the American investors will include Lachlan Murdoch, Larry Ellison, and Michael Dell, with Rupert Murdoch also potentially involved. Lachlan Murdoch recently solidified control of his family's media empire, which includes Fox News and the Wall Street Journal. Larry Ellison co-founded Oracle, while Michael Dell leads Dell Technologies.
Really great people, very prominent people. And they're also American patriots, you know, they love this country, so I think they're going to do a really good job.
The deal follows 2 years of negotiations between the U.S. government and ByteDance aimed at resolving national security concerns. There were ongoing fears about the Chinese Communist Party's influence on TikTok's algorithm and access to user data, especially since China's cybersecurity laws require companies to comply with secret government data requests. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
The Trump administration confirmed a trade deal with the European Union, lowering auto tariffs to 15% and exempting aircraft, drugs, and raw materials. Here are the details.
President Donald Trump's administration said on Wednesday it was formally implementing the U.S. trade agreement with the European Union. The notice said the tariff schedule had been amended to implement the framework agreement reached with the EU in July. That lowers the president's tariffs to 15% on most imports from the bloc, including autos. The deal was subsequently modified to make the duty rate retroactive to August 1st, but European automakers have been waiting for weeks for the formal U.S. notice. For EU cars and parts, the tariff rate dropped to 15% from 25%, effective August 1st. That is sure to ease anxiety in an industry that has been waiting for the long-delayed confirmation in order to make sourcing decisions. And shares in German automakers like BMW and Mercedes-Benz rose following the confirmation. The notice also specifies hundreds of products from the EU that are exempt from Trump's new tariffs. They include natural resources such as cork that are lacking in the United States, generic pharmaceuticals, and aircraft and aircraft parts.
An uptick in consumer spending helped the U.S. economy expand in the second quarter. Gross domestic product rose 3.8% from April through June, according to the Commerce Department's third and final estimate. That's a half point more than the rate given during the second report. Analysts say increased consumer spending and falling imports helped boost the economy over the past few months. The Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta predicts the GDP resumed its growth in the third quarter. And first-time claims for unemployment benefits dropped last week to their lowest level since July. Today's Department of Labor report said there were about 218,000 claims made last week. That's a drop of 14,000 from the week before. Jobless claims had jumped significantly higher earlier this month, but that increase was driven by Texas, which was showing a spike in unemployment claims later attributed to fraudulent activity. And joining us now to discuss the U.S. economy growing 3.8% is Michael Busler. He's a professor of finance at Stockton University and economist and public policy analyst. Michael, always great to see you. Thank you for coming on today. So I wanted to ask you, the Commerce Department reported gross domestic product rose 3.8%, right, from April through June, and that's significantly higher than its previous estimate. What does this say about the resilience of the U.S. economy?
So it's significantly higher, as you pointed out. The first quarter, we had negative growth in GDP. A lot of that had to do with a big increase in imports. When they measure GDP, they look at everything the consumers bought, business bought, the government bought. And if you take imports, they subtract imports out because those things that were bought that were not made in the U.S. That's what caused the number in the fourth quarter to be negative. Now, imports went way down in the second quarter. So the large segment of the consumer spending was on domestically produced goods. The job numbers, the initial jobless claims are 2 weeks in a row. The initial jobless claims have gone down, which is a very positive sign. As you know, the Federal Reserve cut interest rates 25 basis points. I think that was a little small. 50 basis points would have probably been better, but they cut it 25 basis points. That will tend to help stimulate the economy. The Atlanta Fed model that you mentioned, I think in the third quarter, is calling for growth in the 2.2% range. So the first quarter was very bad. The second quarter was extremely good. But if you average out the two of them, the economy was only growing at less than a 2% rate. So it's still relatively weak, but there are some signs that it's coming back. And with the Federal Reserve, I believe, committed to cutting interest rates 2 more times before the end of the year, that's a very positive sign for economic growth.
So do you see trouble in the labor market? The Federal Reserve also mentioned this in their last meeting. We got 2 reports, that were below expectations. I think it was somewhere around 22,000. This recent one, and then the one before was around 70,000.
Yeah. So recall, though, that the jobs numbers we've really gotten in the last 2.5 years have been inflated by nearly 2 million jobs. So the job market was not nearly as strong as we thought. The president replaced the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, saying, look, we need to get data that's more accurate. But the job market continues to be weak. The number of people unemployed for 6 months or longer is starting to grow. So I think more stimulus is needed from the Federal Reserve. And by cutting interest rates a couple of times before the end of the year, I think that's going to be a big help.
How confident do you feel about consumer spending power with this backdrop of the labor market? Because as you know, consumer spending is a big driver of GDP.
Absolutely. Consumer spending accounts for about 70% of GDP. Economists, really for the last year or two, have been saying that they're not quite sure why consumers are as confident as they are and they're spending as much as they are. There's a lot of negative economic data. The inflation problem we still haven't resolved yet, and that's eating at a lot of consumers. The only good thing is that energy prices have fallen somewhat. And there's some indication that energy prices will start to fall more in the coming months. Why do I say that? OPEC and the OPEC plus nations, which are all the countries essentially that produce oil, they've all agreed to increase production in the month of September. So when you increase the supply of anything, the price tends to fall. So we expect lower prices, and President Trump's policy of trying to increase domestic production, his quote, drill baby drill policy, will take some time. It just can't turn on a switch. But by early next year, we should start to see domestic energy production increase significantly. If that happens, energy accounts for about 7% of the consumer price index directly and a little more indirectly because it affects the cost business pays for energy to produce goods and services. So if energy prices fall the way the Trump administration hopes, that should bring the inflation way down, and that should allow the Federal Reserve to lower rates more. The federal funds rate, which they lowered down to about 4%, is still restrictive. Most economists would say if you're 3.25% range, that's neutral. Above that, it's restrictive. So it's still restrictive. And at a time when the economy is slowing, although the second quarter was very good, when the economy is slowing and the number of jobs added is not nearly as great as we thought it was, it's really time for the Federal Reserve to start bringing that interest rate down, and that will really spur consumption.
So are those your main concerns about the U.S. economy, or are there other concerns that you're looking at that might drag down the GDP? Or perhaps you're even entirely optimistic for the U.S. economy in the short term?
Yeah, so I'm very optimistic about the economy next year. I'm a little worried that the inflation rate is not as low as we like it. Why am I optimistic for next year? All of these trade deals, and you mentioned one of the trade deals with the European Union, all of these trade deals set tariffs for countries to bring their products into the U.S. However, all of them, virtually all of them, say that the U.S. can sell in those countries with a zero tariff. And that's much better than we've been facing really for the last 2 or 3 decades, when most countries charge very high tariffs and U.S. producers couldn't sell products there. So I expect next year a big spike in U.S. exports, and that will help grow the economy. In addition to that, there's a lot of foreign investment coming into the country. President Trump says he has commitments for $17 trillion worth of investments. When all that comes in, and it takes some time, but when all that comes in, and it'll start coming in next year, I think that will add to growth and improve the manufacturing sector, adding many more jobs.
So the EU-U.S. trade deal that you brought up there, the deal confirms a 15% tariff on automobiles and parts from the bloc. Can you talk to us about that? And can you actually also mention this coming as China has taken a big part of the auto industry?
Yeah, so that 15% tariff, it will not hurt as much as it sounds. Why? I think the two biggest producers of cars that are imported into the U.S. are BMW and Mercedes. Both of those cars, most of them, are made in the U.S. now. I think BMW makes in South Carolina. Mercedes produces, I think, in Georgia and Alabama. So I don't think that will hurt that much, those companies, since they produce here. What President Trump is hoping is a lot of the parts that the cars that are made here use are still made in Europe. And if that's the case, they'll be subject to the tariff. President Trump is hoping that the companies will say, look, it's much cheaper for them to move manufacturing facilities here in the U.S. That will allow them to sell their cars without having to raise the price. And on the U.S. side, that will create more jobs, and it'll be a net gain definitely for the American worker.
Okay, Michael, that's our time today. Really appreciate you giving us your time today. Thank you.
Always my pleasure.
And right now, law enforcement is holding a press conference on the shooting at Dallas ICE facility. Let's take a look at that.
Devices and locations associated with the sniper. FBI agents executed a search warrant at the sniper's residence yesterday, and there found a collection of notes. First, I want to point out that one of these notes or papers, the sniper explicitly states, yes, it was just me. That statement appears to be correct at this point in the investigation. Notably, these loose notes included a game plan of the attack and target areas at the facility. He called the ICE employees people showing up to collect a dirty paycheck. He wrote that he intended to maximize lethality against ICE personnel and to maximize property damage at the facility. He hoped to minimize any collateral damage or injury to the detainees and any other innocent people. It seems that he did not intend to kill the detainees or harm them. It's clear from these notes that he was targeting ICE agents and ICE personnel. The tragic irony for his evil plot here is that it was a detainee who was killed and 2 other detainees that were injured when he fired into the Sally Port. He also hoped his actions would give ICE agents real terror of being gunned down, and he did this to induce constant stress in their lives. He hoped his actions would terrorize ICE employees and interfere with their work, which he called human trafficking. And this, what he did, is the very definition of terrorism. Again, his notes reveal, yes, it was just me and my brain. And he said, good luck with the digital footprint. And of course, we take this to mean that he deleted evidence from his devices. His words were definitively anti-ICE. That said, we did not find evidence of membership in any specific group or entity, nor did he mention any specific government agency other than ICE. Among his papers, though, was a handwritten note in which, in crude words, he expressed his hatred for the federal government. Finally, I want to address the heroism of our federal agents yesterday. While under fire, ICE agents and ATF agents who were also present in the facility's Sally Port area worked together to remove detainees from the vans and get them to safety while the bullets were flying. These agents were heroic, clearly willing to lay down their lives to save the lives of the detainees in their custody. And that's an extremely important point to make at this point in time. I want to express my deepest appreciation for the bravery of these law enforcement officers yesterday and every single day that they go out there to keep us safe. I'll now turn it over to FBI Special Agent in charge of the Dallas Field Office, Joe Rothrock. Thank you.
Good afternoon. First, I'd like to start by thanking our acting United States Attorney, Nancy Larson, and her office for their support during this investigation. My name is Joe Rothrock, and I'm the Special Agent in charge of the FBI.
And that was officials giving an update on the ICE facility shooting yesterday. So the person was talking about the motives here and potentially giving us a hint, because the notes apparently said that the shooter wanted to maximize injury on ICE agents. So specifically talking about ICE agents and talking about minimizing collateral damage on other people. So that means, according to the official, that it was not intended for the shooter to actually kill the detainees or the detainee that was shot yesterday and 2 more injured. One is dead. And we're going to go back to the presser now. Take a listen.
And how to track ICE agents' locations. Jan also acknowledged the potential for other casualties. He knew with a high likelihood ICE detainees would be transported that morning in the exact location where he was facing from his perch on a nearby rooftop. Jan's attack did in fact result in the tragic death of 1 detainee and the injury to 2 other detainees. We have been able to confirm that Jan legally obtained an 8mm bolt-action rifle he used in the shooting in August of this year. Based on our investigation to date, we believe Jan acted alone, but I'll stress our investigation continues. This attack yet again underscores the dangers that law enforcement face daily. We continue to see an increased threats against law enforcement. This is the 2nd attack in recent months on ICE facilities here in North Texas. I do want to take this opportunity to thank our law enforcement partners, some of whom are here with us today. When Jan began firing, agents from both ICE and the ATF put themselves in the line of fire to move individuals off the transportation vehicles in an attempt to protect and rescue those that were injured. I want to thank them for their bravery. The Dallas Police Department and the Dallas County Sheriff's Office also quickly responded to the scene without any hesitation and ran towards danger. Ultimately, they located the shooter, who was deceased by an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. I want to thank them for their prompt response and dedication to protecting and serving their communities. I also want to thank our partners that have assisted in this investigation. The Fairview Police Department, as well as our partners in Oklahoma, to include Bryant County Sheriff's Department, Durant Police Department, and Choctaw Nation Light Horse Police, as well as our personnel from San Antonio and Oklahoma City within the FBI that assisted. The FBI has dedicated its entire breadth of resources to ensure this investigation is completed thoroughly. The FBI stands with our law enforcement partners, and today we express that the attacks against law enforcement officers will not be tolerated. While we believe Jan acted alone, we are still asking that anyone with information about Jan or his activities report that to the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI or at
Okay, so the official is saying if anyone has any tips, please call the FBI. It's 1-800-CALL-FBI. And it appears that from the current investigation, which, by the way, is still ongoing, the shooter said that he acted alone. It was all by himself. And he gave other notes as well, such as saying good luck with the digital trail, perhaps indicating that he has deleted some information. Okay, we're going to move on for now. Next, former French President Nicolas Sarkozy has been convicted for receiving Libyan campaign funds in 2007 and sentenced to 5 years in prison. He denies wrongdoing, calling the ruling a persecution. NTD International correspondent David Revez reports from Paris.
A French court specialized in financial crimes has convicted former French President Nicolas Sarkozy for receiving illegal campaign funds from Libya in 2007. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison, with part of that sentence to be served immediately despite his appeal. This marks the first time a French president has been convicted. The court called his action a criminal conspiracy of an exceptional gravity, likely to undermine citizens' confidence in those who represent them. Sarkozy has denied the charges, calling the ruling a persecution.
I couldn't be accused of any personal enrichment. No illegal financing of my campaign. No personal enrichment.
The court found him guilty of criminal association in a 2005-2007 plot to obtain Libyan funds in exchange for diplomatic favors, but cleared him of other charges like illegal campaign financing and corruption. This trial followed more than 10 years of investigation and press revelations exposing a suspected corrupt pact between Gaddafi's Libya and Sarkozy political circle.
I will comply with the summons of justice. If they absolutely want me to sleep in prison, I will sleep in prison, but with my head held high. I am innocent.
Despite the conviction, Sarkozy remains influential in French politics, meeting current leaders and leading support to right-wing National Rally Party. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
7 more U.S. universities have cut ties with the Chinese Communist Party following calls from the House Select Committee on the CCP. And a bipartisan group of lawmakers are pushing legislation to release wrongfully detained U.S. citizens and their family members from Chinese jails. NTD's Melina Weisskopf reports.
7 U.S. universities have closed their joint ventures with the China Scholarship Council, a Chinese Communist Party-backed scholarship program. University of Notre Dame and Dartmouth College are among those who have cut ties. It comes after the House Committee on the Chinese Communist Party raised concerns that the partnership allowed the CCP to exploit U.S. institutions to transfer sensitive tech that's used to support China's military growth. Chairman of the Select Committee on the CCP commended the decisions, writing that the institutions are demonstrating real leadership and a commitment to safeguarding U.S. research and innovation. He hopes others will follow suit. In other news, a Republican and a Democrat are pushing a bill to release Americans wrongfully detained in China. Congressman Chris Smith says the CCP holds more Americans as prisoners than any other nation in the world. The congressman said it is well past time that the United States responds forcefully and fearlessly to rescue its citizens who have been held hostage by the CCP. His bill would direct the Secretary of State to create a plan to identify all cases of concern and use leverage available to release citizens in Chinese custody. It also aims to counter the CCP's tactic of suppressing free speech abroad by holding family members of American citizens as hostages. One example is the sister of Uyghur American activist Rushan Abbas. After she spoke out against the CCP's human rights abuses in Xinjiang, her sister was handed a 20-year prison sentence on terrorism-related charges. Smith said these deliberate assaults on the freedoms and livelihoods of American citizens and their families must end once and for all. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Starbucks is closing more stores and announcing a second round of layoffs at its headquarters in an effort to revive its struggling business. This morning, CEO Brian Niccol said the company will shut down hundreds of stores this month, roughly 1% of its locations. By the end of September, Starbucks will have 18,300 North American locations. That's down from more than 18,700 it had at the end of June. Starbucks also revealed an additional 900 corporate layoffs in addition to the roughly 1,000 previously announced in February. The company expects its restructuring efforts to cost $1 billion. The Trump administration is bracing for a government shutdown and has advised federal agencies to prepare a reduction in force of non-essential programs. Will Democrats stay the course and force a lapse in government funding? We come back with that.
Kids love it. Parents trust it. Obviously. Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Gong Jiong Campus courses led by expert educators. This is spectacular. Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more. Wow. All while having fun. Perfect. Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
There's cultures that have been lost, but this culture hasn't been. The artist is showing us our sense of who we are, where we came from. You look at his hat. His hat is knitted probably by a man because a man traditionally knitted the hats. That hat tells you the story of who this person is, what his place in the culture is, the animals around him. Everything's all contained in the messages in the hat. And the tool that he's carrying over his shoulder. This is a centuries-old tool that has been able to rework the mountains. Those traditions are invaluable, and if we don't honor those traditions, then we're rootless. The artist is showing us the value of maintaining our culture and respecting our culture.
Ethan was shot in the head in his best friend's house with an unsecured gun. The father, the gun owner, he stored his 3 guns and bullets in a shoebox. That has to be the most horrific experience that a human could ever have.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump is expected to sign an executive order on the TikTok deal, and the president floating further executive action after the ICE facility shooting. The Trump administration is bracing for a government shutdown and has advised federal agencies to prepare a reduction in force of non-essential programs, while Democrats stay the course and force a lapse in government funding. President Trump hosting the president of Turkey at the White House. We zoom in on their discussions from trade to fighter jet purchases to the war in Ukraine. The U.S. reports intercepting 4 Russian military planes off Alaska today. How Washington is responding. The British Royal Navy shadows Russian ships traversing through British seas. With a keen eye on securing their waters and critical infrastructure, Germany called for deterrence by NATO against Russian incursions. The Trump administration announces that it will use Elon Musk's artificial intelligence chatbot for federal agencies. The announcement follows this summer's public spat between the tech titan and President Trump.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Thank you for staying with us. President Trump expected to sign executive orders meant to clear the way for completion of the TikTok deal and crack down on political violence. We now go live to NTD's Washington correspondent, Mari Otsu. Mari, good afternoon. What can you tell us about the orders the president is expected to sign today?
Don, good afternoon. Yes, President Trump today is expected to sign an executive order that would pave the way towards a deal to keep TikTok alive in the U.S. In his first term, the president called for the app to be banned, but he's since changed course, delaying the ban 4 times, now until December. And according to a senior White House official, this expected EO today will confirm that the TikTok deal complies with America's national security standards. The deal entails the American tech company Oracle serving as a security provider and storing American data. Take a look.
User data will be stored on servers operated by Oracle in the United States, protected from surveillance or interference by foreign adversaries. And the algorithm, I know this is a question many of you have had, will be secured, retrained, and operated in the United States.
The White House has been touting this as a historic deal, saying that businesses using TikTok will generate as much as $178 billion within the U.S. over the next 4 years. However, some lawmakers have been expressing concerns over this deal about TikTok's potential ties to the CCP. Points of concern have been about the CCP continuing to control the app through its algorithm and the CCP's access to American user data posing a large national security threat. However, President Trump says that the app will be owned by majority American investors. Take a look.
We have great American patriots that are buying it, very, very substantial people that love our country, and they're very smart technologically, and they will not let anything bad happen to TikTok.
Meanwhile, President Trump last night responded to the Dallas ICE facility shooting by announcing that he will sign another executive order this week to, quote, dismantle domestic terrorism networks. He also drew attention in that announcement to the anti-ICE messaging written on the shell casings from the shooting. And while it remains unclear exactly what this executive order will entail, the president said this earlier today about rhetoric and political violence in the U.S. Watch.
Radical left rhetoric. The radical left is causing the problem. They're out of control, and it's going to get worse, and ultimately it's going to go back on them. I mean, bad things happen when they play these games.
The shooting is coming less than 2 days after President Trump signed yet another executive order on Monday night, which designated Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. Don, back to you.
Okay, Mari, thank you. The White House's Office of Management and Budget has asked federal agencies to prepare for a reduction in force of non-statutory programs as Senate Democrats maintain their position of forcing a government shutdown. Our Washington correspondent Luis Eduardo Martinez has the details.
The President of the United States is saying, I'm going to take away your health care, and if you stand up for that, well, then I'll turn around and lay off people, fire workers.
Senate Democrats who refused to extend government funding past September 30th are now blaming President Trump for taking preemptive action on an imminent government shutdown by preparing a reduction in force of non-essential federal government personnel. The Office of Management and Budget's letter to federal agencies seeks to rein in spending in preparation for a lapse in funding that may start on October 1st if Senate Democrats refuse to fund the government.
Well, let's be clear about where we are. House Republicans passed a continuing resolution last week to keep the government funded and open. There is not one legitimate reason that Democrats should not support a continuing resolution. They have voted for it every time when Joe Biden and Barack Obama were president.
The messaging from Democratic leadership has been to portray the expiration of COVID-era healthcare tax credits as a Republican choice to cut healthcare, despite the fact that it was Democrats who set the expiration of those premiums back in 2021 through their Inflation Reduction Act reconciliation bill.
Republicans have made their intentions clear as it relates to healthcare of the American people. They want to destroy it. Republicans have spent the entire year destroying the health care of the American people. Our position is clear. Cancel the cuts, lower the costs, save health care.
Republican leadership remains open to discuss some form of extension of these health care credits. Senate Democrats will have another chance at avoiding a government shutdown next week when the Senate will likely vote again on the House-passed continuing resolution.
A lot of these folks get auto-enrolled. The payments are made directly to the insurance companies. Like I said, this is a program that needs reform, but I think everybody is willing to sit down and talk about how to make that happen in a context where it should be discussed, not as a hostage to keep the government open. I mean,
it's important to note that despite being in the majority in both chambers, Republicans have conceded to maintaining current levels of government spending instead of reducing them. President Trump supports congressional Republicans' efforts to maintain the government open and avoid unnecessary reductions in force of the federal government. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
President Trump is hosting the president of Turkey, Tayyip Erdogan, at the White House. They're set to discuss trade and military agreements in a meeting.
He's built a tremendous military, powerful military, uses a lot of our equipment, and it's an honor to have him at the White House. We're going to have a lunch together. We're going to have a discussion, big discussion. We do a lot of trade with Turkey, and we're going to continue. We're going to do some additional trade. They want to buy F-16s, F-35s, and some other things, and we're going to talk to them about that.
Trump says he has a great relationship with Erdogan, especially on military and trade. The war in Ukraine and potential tariffs on Russia are also on the table. Turkey is a NATO ally, but also keeps a close relationship with Russia. Trump says he would like to have Turkey stop buying oil and gas from Russia.
7,818 people were killed last week, mostly military people, their people, and Ukrainians. More Russians, actually, than Ukraine, a little bit more. but it's such a waste of human life. And so he ought to stop. Putin ought to stop. And with that, we'll get to a little bit of a discussion. We're going to make some great trade deals for both countries. We do a lot of business with Turkey. They build great products.
Trump said he's disappointed in Russian President Vladimir Putin for not stopping the war, and also disappointed in NATO allies that continue to buy Russian oil. But he noted that NATO members agreed to increase defense spending, and the alliance is stronger than ever. The president also highlighted that Erdogan could have a big influence in stopping the war, and the best he could do is to stop buying Russian oil. On the Israel-Hamas war, the president said he had good meetings with the leaders of Middle Eastern countries, and a deal could be close. President Trump will sign an executive order approving a new TikTok agreement today, a White House official told the Epoch Times. Joining us now to discuss is Casey Fleming, Chairman and CEO of Black Ops Partners Corporation. Casey, good afternoon to you. So there's a number of measures as part of this deal, and I'd like to have you discuss some of them to try to make sure that TikTok is safe for Americans. So TikTok will have a new board, that's one of them, and one position will actually be held by ByteDance, which will be excluded from security-related decisions. The rest of the seats are held by Americans. Will this keep it safe?
No, it will not. It is I've said this all along, it is a Trojan horse in the United States and in free world countries. It is a Trojan horse. It is a weaponized military application created by the Chinese Communist Party. And it should never have ever been allowed into the United States. And all of the repositioning and, U.S. buyers, so here's the point. If you're selling it, why would ByteDance still be allowed to be on the board? And by the way, the messaging back in China says that they're retaining control of the algorithm, and that was their deal and their terms, not our terms. So there's two completely different stories, one in the U.S., one in communist China. So again, this is, you have to understand, this is a weapon in the hands of our children. It tracks every movement. It tracks their retinal scans, their facial scans, all of their emails, all their photos, all their geolocations for wherever the phone is and wherever those pictures or videos being taken. It is a Trojan horse. And in my expert opinion, being a former software executive and former cyber executive and national security executive, it's a no-go from my cockpit.
Okay, what about Oracle taking on the role of overseeing the app's source code and algorithm and security matters and storing the data in the U.S.?
Well, I haven't seen the code, but I would imagine it was all written in Chinese code. And when you understand software, there are literally millions and millions lines of software code. And there's all kinds of nooks and crannies that can be hidden into. Even the algorithm can have all types of other avenues inside the algorithms. It can redirect information to other servers and then to other servers. From a national security perspective, it is an absolute no-go, from my opinion.
So essentially, you're saying that ByteDance or the CCP will continue to be exerting influence behind the scenes and perhaps even continue to see Americans' data.
100%. Our technology executives are not held to national security requirements or national security standards. They're held to, if they're publicly traded, they're held to their stock price, or they're held to their own financial gain. They're not held to national security. And I might add also that TikTok was created based on U.S. stolen innovation. So on every line of this is an absolute no-go. We're just lining the pockets of other very, very rich people that why don't we just create a brand new app in the United States based on the technology that TikTok stole in the first place? And why not pirate everything that's good about TikTok, like they pirate and steal everything that we have in the United States, every bit of innovation.
So would that then make TikTok safe if we sort of rebuild the app from the ground up in America?
Well, of course, but that would no longer be TikTok. You're taking every bit of DNA out of TikTok and throwing it back to China and not allowing it into the free world. So it would be a completely skunkworks, national security held app, because technology today, I've got always a quote that everybody needs to remember. Technology was always built for one reason: to improve society, improve productivity, so on. But every bit of technology can be weaponized against you. So TikTok can cease being TikTok can still be TikTok. It just can't be in any free world country. So it needs to be a 100% replacement. Has nothing to do with TikTok, and owned by national security companies that follow national security law, and so on. Just remember the other thing. TikTok and all technology coming out of China must adhere to CCP law on national security. That means just on its face, everything must be shared with the Chinese Communist Party under the guise of national security. So any kind of deal that people are talking about, and certainly the president, and in all respect to the president, from my cockpit, it will not fly as a national security thing. Let me just also say, would you allow this type of app to be, if it was from Nazi Germany or Imperial Japan back in World War II, would you allow that inside of U.S. borders and free world borders? It just does not make sense. It doesn't matter what we're being sold by these investors. They want us to buy this Trojan horse. But for those of us who care about national security and our freedom, we would absolutely reject that piece of it. One other thing I would like everybody to remember: when today, with the power of technology in the hand, whether it's the computing power or the app power or the data driven by that app or where that data goes, you have to understand today it's the same as putting a loaded gun up to your face, whether you're a man, a woman, or a middle schooler. That's the power that people don't realize. They think it's this fun little gadget, and it is on its surface, but underneath it, it is highly, highly weaponized.
Okay, that really clears things up. But I want to explore as well, different angles for this deal. Perhaps if we have a U.S. board and we have Oracle, if the CCP is doing nefarious things behind the scenes, would we be more able to detect it and then act accordingly? Would we have more visibility into the CCP's actions into TikTok after this deal?
Well, yes, there would be more visibility into those actions, but it comes down to the individual. Should I let this stay or should I let this go? If you're held to national security and to freedom and you're a patriotic person in the country, you'd say, I'm reporting this. But then the boss, the management, what are we going to do with that report? So it's one of those things that when it's a foreign app like this, and it's a weaponized military app, and it will never change, doesn't matter who the owner is, you've got all these different levels of reporting, observation, approval, denial, and you get caught up into it. And so the thing is, it's all about money. In the United States, it's all about money. And our laws are not caught up yet around national security and technology to protect it. And the most important thing is what it's doing to children's minds. It's not just their data and rendering them vulnerable to all types of nefarious actions, but also what it's doing to their minds, which is completely deleting their critical thinking capabilities. It's opening their minds up to foreign narratives, communist narratives, and to replace their values, their American values, with communist values. This is a Trojan horse weapon, and I don't care who owns it. It needs to be completely banned in the United States and the free world, and we need those same investors who want to invest in TikTok. We can have another replacement app up in about the next 6 months. It's not that difficult to develop these apps. We have the technology, we have the innovation, and we have the people. So my answer is develop a clean app, put laws around that thing, upgrade our national security laws, and make it a USA homegrown app, which, by the way, also goes down the road of a U.S. homegrown smartphone, U.S. homegrown apps, or apps that are completely screened, and so on. So our technology is not caught up. Our Bill of Rights never anticipated technology. That's why we need a thing called the Electronic Bill of Rights to make sure that our rights are protected with this technology that's been mushrooming over the past many years, which also must include AI, quantum computing, and all these things that our 234-year-old Bill of Rights has not answered because it just couldn't anticipate it.
Well, very well said, Casey. And if I can have just one more question for you to comment on. You know, the CCP has had a very long history of using its technology, whether it's to commit human rights abuses against prisoners of conscience or dissidents. So what does this technology, TikTok, represent in the hands of the regime? And how can it be used against these groups and speech as well?
We actually have seen where it's being used with human trafficking, identifying girls and boys for human trafficking. We've seen it, these TikTok challenges basically say, hey, go do these crazy stunts and kill yourself or maim yourself for life. Everything. It's programming our children. Gen Z gets, last I caught, the stat was Gen Z gets 55% of Gen Z get their news from TikTok. They get their news from a Chinese communist platform. So here's the other thing. Dr. Daniel Amen, A-M-E-N, has come out many times and said that the prefrontal cortex is not fully developed until age 25. And he says that parents must protect the brain up until age 25 to where the brain can take over and protect itself. So the brain is a very malleable, clay-like phenomenon that is in full development mode. And to have this app programming that brain the CCP is laughing, at us because we just can't get out our own way. So, for somebody who's got a long career in technology, in software, and cyber, and national security, I'm here to tell you it's a no-go. And there should be no reason we can't create a new app in 6 to 9 months in the U.S. to completely replace TikTok. A better app, a more secure app, a more fun app for everybody who wants to use it.
Okay, well, very well said, Casey. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up, new details revealed today about the deadly shooting at the ICE facility in Dallas. Officials say the shooter's game plan was to target ICE agents. New details are released from LA County's after-action report on the January Eaton and Palisades fires. The review highlights delays in evacuation alerts and gaps in emergency communications. Stay tuned for that and more when we come back.
The bladder control aisle. You won't shop here again. Your private business is your own. The constant struggle is over. Now there's a better way. It's HDIS. We home deliver bladder control products. We understand how you feel. For over 25 years, we've home delivered to many of the 20 million Americans who deal with incontinence. We offer all brands. We pay shipping and use plain, unmarked boxes. If we can help you or someone you care for, call for your free product sample pack and $45 in money-saving coupons. Our counselors will help you choose the right product. And unlike stores, we're always in stock. You'll get what you need. Satisfaction guaranteed. HDIS, the better way.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog, $45 in money-saving coupons, and free product samples, call 1-800-701-6159. That's 1-800-701-6159.
I trod on my glasses yesterday, and I had to pay up front for a new pair that I can't even pick up for another 10 days. So I looked for another way. And I found Select Specs. I ordered online. My new glasses just arrived this morning. And I can pay over the next few weeks. This is the way to buy glasses.
See now, pay later with Select Specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options. Only at selectspecs.com.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back-in-stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings. Regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queen $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping. And I can't let this happen to my kid. So if you want to talk to your kids, you have to get it trending.
No, you're doing it wrong.
Let's go.
Can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
Visit talkaboutvaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
New details revealed today about the deadly shooting at the ICE facility in Dallas. Officials say the shooter's game plan was to target ICE agents.
He also hoped his actions would give ICE agents real terror of being gunned down. And he did this to induce constant stress in their lives. He hoped his actions would terrorize ICE employees and interfere with their work, which he called human trafficking. And this, what he did, is the very definition of terrorism.
Acting U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Texas, Nancy Larson, said search warrants were served in connection with the sniper. At this time, they believe he very likely acted alone. A note found at his home seems to confirm that. Larson said other messages were found that indicated the shooter's game plan was to target ICE while trying to minimize damage to detainees. One detainee was killed in the shooting, and Larson said 2 other detainees are still receiving treatment for their injuries. Larson also said they found no evidence that the suspect had membership in any group, and no other government agencies were mentioned. But she said he did express hatred for the federal government and appears to have deleted digital evidence. The Trump administration has announced that it will use Elon Musk's artificial intelligence chatbot for federal agencies. According to the General Services Administration, the federal government will have access to the Grok 4 and Grok 4 Fast service for the next 18 months. The GSA said access to AI tools will enable the Trump administration to modernize federal government operations. Over the summer, Musk and President Trump had a public spat over Trump's Republican-backed One Big Beautiful Bill. Last weekend, Musk met with Trump at the memorial for assassinated conservative influencer Charlie Kirk in Arizona. The two sat next to one another at one point and shook hands. An uptick in consumer spending helped the U.S. economy expand in the second quarter. Gross domestic product rose 3.8% from April through June, according to the Commerce Department's third and final estimate. That's a half point more than the rate given during the second report. Analysts say increased consumer spending and falling imports helped boost the economy over the past few months. The Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta predicts the GDP resumed its growth in the third quarter. And first-time claims for unemployment benefits dropped last week to their lowest level since July. Today's Department of Labor report said there were about 218,000 claims made last week. That's a drop of 14,000 from the week before. Jobless claims had jumped significantly higher earlier this month, but that increase was driven by Texas, which was showing a spike in unemployment claims later attributed to fraudulent activity. Disney is facing legal threats from a group of shareholders over its suspension of Jimmy Kimmel, following his comments on the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Lawyers representing labor and press groups, including Reporters Without Borders and the American Federation of Teachers, say Disney has 5 days to release internal documents or face a lawsuit. They argued the decision may have violated shareholder interests and free speech principles, especially with 25% of ABC affiliates still refusing to air Kimmel's show. The move triggered a $4 billion drop in Disney's market value last week. Disney has not publicly responded to the demands. Kimmel's Tuesday's return drew over 6 million viewers in a 10-year ratings high, compared to his usually average of around 1.5 million viewers nightly. President Trump is now teasing a lawsuit against ABC following Jimmy Kimmel's return. Trump says he's going to, quote, test ABC out, saying that Kimmel's show could potentially count as a major illegal campaign contribution, as the president calls it a, quote, arm of the Democratic National Committee. In Kimmel's return monologue Tuesday night, Kimmel says that he never intended to make light of Charlie Kirk's killing, but Vice President J.D. Vance says in his response this, listen.
He didn't actually say sorry to Charlie Kirk or his family. And the reason that so many people, including me, were so upset with what Jimmy Kimmel said is that he accused Charlie Kirk's murderer of being a MAGA or a right-wing American. It wasn't a joke. It was straight up disinformation. And I really wish Jimmy Kimmel would apologize for it.
President Trump has already secured $16 million from ABC back in December 2024 as part of the settlement of a defamation lawsuit that the president brought against the network. Meanwhile, a spokesperson for Turning Point USA wrote on X yesterday that Jimmy Kimmel's comments on his show were not sufficient and lacked an apology to Kirk's family. This is after ABC suspended Kimmel's show before reinstating it on Tuesday. President Trump has since criticized ABC on Truth Social for allowing the show back on air. Turning Point USA is on its nationwide campus tour once again after the assassination of its founder, Charlie Kirk. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin honored Kirk's legacy yesterday during a stop at Virginia Tech. He told thousands of students they will carry forward the movement that Kirk built there. Here's the look.
But see, the truth is that the question that has been asked over and over again is, who will be the next Charlie? And as I look out in this room and I see thousands of you, I want to repeat the best answer that I have heard. You will be the next Charlie. All of you. And that is something to take home tonight.
Youngkin said Kirk left behind a blueprint to advance truth in the face of evil. Youngkin also recalled Kirk's faith, telling students they're lights that chase out darkness. And he praised Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica, who has taken up the role of Turning Point CEO. He called her an extraordinary leader with the courage of a lion and the heart of a saint. Last year, an illegal immigrant with a commercial driver's license allegedly caused a multi-car pileup while driving an 18-wheeler in California. The crash injured several people, including a 5-year-old girl who had to be airlifted to the hospital. Now her father is speaking out. Marcus Coleman says his daughter's injuries were severe and included skull fractures and a broken femur. Coleman says the injuries have resulted in her inability to walk, talk, or eat normally. The father says his 5-year-old was in a coma for 3 weeks and required a 6-month hospital stay. Last month, ICE arrested the suspect in Fresno after a warrant was issued for his arrest. The Indian national will remain in ICE custody pending immigration proceedings. According to ICE, the suspect crossed the southern border illegally in October 2022 and was released into the U.S. Last month, another illegal alien was charged with 3 counts of vehicular homicide for a semi-truck crash in Florida. The Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors released a long-awaited after-action report on the January Eaton and Palisades fires. It highlights evacuation procedures and notes that emergency alerts may not have been effectively communicated to residents. NTD's Christina Corona reports.
The LA County Board of Supervisors released the long-awaited after-action report Thursday on the devastating January wildfires. The review, conducted by consulting firm McChrystal Group, found no single point of failure in how alerts, warnings, and evacuations were handled. Instead, it cited multiple weaknesses, including outdated policies, inconsistent procedures, and communication gaps that limited the effectiveness of the county's response. The 132-page report examined evacuation delays during the Eaton fire, where many residents west of Altadena did not receive alerts until hours after the flames were reported in the area. The report says that while officials initially ordered evacuations east of Lake Avenue at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, January 7th, West Altadena did not get its first evacuation order until 3:25 a.m. on Wednesday, January 8th, even though at least a dozen 911 calls reported fire earlier in the night. Investigators also said high winds up to 90 miles per hour, coordination issues among the LA County Fire Department, Sheriff's Department, and the Office of Emergency Management, as well as gaps in documentation, were factors in evacuation delays. The report highlighted the need for clearer policies, stronger training, and improved public communication. LA County officials are expected to discuss the report at a press conference Thursday afternoon. Christina Corona, NTD News.
A German spy gathered and supplied information to China related to Falun Gong, according to prosecutors. We discuss why the CCP views Falun Gong as a threat after the break.
When I arrived in the U.S. at 19, I struggled to find job opportunities without a high school diploma. My name is Ariel, and my entire life changed when I took a chance and I got my high school diploma at age 22. Everything I have, my education, my career, my marriage, I owe to the Adult Literacy Center and my teachers. They were with me every step of the way, helping with my English and math, making sure I pushed through all the challenges. Oh my goodness.
So Ariel, we made this here just for you. Has notes from other people that are here. Your achievement has set an example for so many students. Most importantly, your daughter.
Education was the key that unlocked all my opportunities.
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you.
I don't remember how it started. Our back and forth. Victory. Fumble. Repeat. It always came back.
Okay, here we go, throw it! Yeah.
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Nice.
I am so glad you ladies are here. You each have your own rooms. Thank you. Get settled in. I'll call you for dinner. Adopting teen sisters, it's a lot. Girls, you're gonna be late. You want breakfast? No thanks, we're good. They're always in their own world. What'd you get there? Twice the work. Twice the surprises. Just try it. Good. But if you think of it that way, they're also twice as fulfilling. I think you should ask her yourself.
Is it okay to call you Mom?
Of course you can.
A German spy gathered and supplied information to China-related Falun Gong, according to prosecutors. Joining us now to discuss this is Cynthia Sun, researcher for the Falun Dafa Information Center and fellow at the First Freedom Foundation. So good afternoon, Cynthia. Regarding what the spy did, they're accused of working for Beijing's intelligence services, and they allegedly leaked over 500 sensitive EU and party documents to China and compiled personal data on over 25,000 Chinese dissidents in Europe. And prosecutors are also saying that the defendant gathered and supplied information to China related to Falun Gong. So why is information on Falun Gong so valuable to the CCP?
Yeah, thank you for having me on today, Don. Jian Guo, this German spy, like you said, provided incredible amounts of insidious information against Chinese dissidents. And what's not really mentioned is that he's done this since 2002. That's what prosecutors allege. So it's been 23 years since he's been doing this. And even though he became a German national in 2011, the continuation of his loyalty to Chinese intelligence is alarming and abundant. He'll call the Chinese intelligence contacts on his phone and call them Big Brother. We have evidence in court documents of, how important it is to really infiltrate the communities of Chinese dissidents, including Falun Gong. And to be honest, I see this as a part of a second wave of repression, one that is inside the EU, inside the United States, rather than inside China, like we've learned all these years. It's truly been exported. The repression has spread to our doorsteps. And you can trace this to 2022 when, the CCP leader Xi Jinping gave a directive saying that, the current persecution against Falun Gong is not creative enough. His words, not mine. And he regarded the persecution as some sort of litmus test of loyalty to his followers and to these Chinese officials. So I think what we're seeing right now is an unboxing of the Pandora's box that has been going on for the past 2 decades, but we haven't seen. What scares me the most, to be honest, is, we have Guo Jian, who might be sentenced to now 7.5 years for his crimes, but he was able to become an aide to a European parliamentary member. And from 2019 to 2024, he worked as an aide. He was inside the EU as a trusted member of the parliamentary staff. I wonder how many more people are like him, how many more spies are embedded within the European Parliament or even within the U.S. Congress. And that truly is a scary prospect.
Hearing what you said, that the persecution was contained within China, now it's being exported beyond Chinese borders, right? It makes me think, why does the CCP view Falun Gong as such a threat, despite it being nonviolent?
I do think it's an oxymoron because, the Chinese Constitution inherently has a article protecting religion, but in practice, they remove Jesus's image from churches. They persecute Falun Gong practitioners. They're committing genocide against all of these religious minorities. And so it's funny how different the law is versus what's actually practiced. And I think it actually speaks to the fear of the Chinese Communist Party. They refuse to admit that God exists, that a creator exists, but tens of millions of Falun Gong practitioners in China continue to believe that a creator exists, that higher beings are watching over us and protecting us. And, if you do good deeds, then you'll get good rewards. And if you sin, then, potentially hell is waiting for you. And so, that heavenly, divine aspect of it is completely antithetical to the Chinese Communist Party. And that core reason is why the Chinese Communist Party first persecuted Falun Gong back in 1999. They had this irrational fear that if they get rid of believers, if they get rid of Falun Gong practitioners, which at that point was 100 million, according to state media sources, then the Chinese Communist Party would be able to thrive. But I kind of see it as them shooting themselves in the foot, because on the contrary, what they've actually raised is a grassroots activist movement that has spread over 110 countries and continues to expose the CCP today.
So I want to follow up on an earlier point you made, Cynthia, that perhaps there are more spies working for the CCP's intelligence apparatus. Can you, based on that, talk to us more about China's broader strategy of transnational influence?
Sure. I think this started really gaining traction in the general public 2 or 3 years ago, when that Chinese police station in Manhattan was discovered. And since then, organizations like Safeguard Defenders have put out reports saying there's at least 6 more Chinese police stations across the US and potentially dozens around the world, including in Europe. And so this has become a big issue since then, a headline in every newspaper. And I think the entire shift from repression inside China to now an expansion into what we see today, which is transnational repression. You know, when a country goes after dissidents or naysayers in other countries outside of their political borders, you know, this has become a kind of political tool that the Chinese Communist Party really likes to levy, because then they're able to control the narrative, not just in China, but also abroad. So, for example, in Europe and in Asia and in the States, there's multiple documentaries currently screening across the world. One of them is on forced organ harvesting, a recent one called State Organs. And I know the Chinese Communist Party has used transnational repression to threaten speakers, to threaten victims, to threaten the film producer and the team to stop their screenings. So obviously, they're trying to silence and completely chill speech around the crimes that they've committed on organ harvesting. And in some cases, it's been successful. And so they're just trying to push their red line as far as they can take it. And transnational repression has been a topic that the Falun Dafa Information Center and my colleagues have been researching and documenting quite thoroughly. We have an incident tracker on our website, and now I believe in the US alone, there are over 130 incidents of transnational repression, which include death threats, bomb threats, things of that nature. But if we count the whole world, there's nearly 200. And I think that's very concerning. The CCP really wants to control what people of the world can see or access.
Okay, on that note, can you comment on the CCP's priorities? Because from what I can see, I mean, it's got a lot on its plate right now. Domestically, internationally, you know, it's got to deal with tariffs. There's the ByteDance divestment thing that it's got to worry about. It's got things in its own economy, like there's protests that we've been seeing recently, and, you know, unemployment numbers not looking good. And yet, despite all that, it's putting its resources and focus on cracking down a simple faith group. I mean, it just seems to me its priorities are lopsided. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, because In the US, obviously, we see religious freedom and human rights as sort of a separate topic from, say, national security or the economy. But in China, this is completely interlinked. And what I mean by that is the Chinese Communist Party inherently needs to have control over its citizens, unlike a democracy does, because communism inherently relies on the political foundation of the belief and the autonomy and the complete control over its citizens to actually work and to actually build up, whether it's their economy, whether it's their political motives, whether it's other narratives that they're trying to push in other countries, like the Belt and Road Initiative, or even, Taiwan. And if they don't have the loyalty, the blind loyalty of the Chinese citizens, if half of the citizens are practicing faith and thinking for themselves independently, then it's impossible for them to push their political narrative. It's impossible for them to do a military takeover of whatever country they want to take over, because then half of the military would hypothetically give up on their leadership and not follow in the command. So it really is a central system. You have to think of it as a command system rather than what we have here, which is democracy and a republic. So when the Chinese Communist Party invests its money into repression, invests its money into media propaganda, invests money into spies like this German one, Guojian, for 23 years, or to the other one in Texas at MD Anderson that was recently arrested. This is incredible amounts of money. You can't just buy that loyalty with 10 cents. Prices have even risen for the 50-cent army to, I believe they rose it 100% or something. If you want to write a comment that's supporting the CCP, they even have to raise the prices now for people to actually join, because no one wants to be loyal to the Chinese Communist Party anymore. It's a dying fad. And, more people are jumping off the ship. And so they have to continue repressing Falun Gong and repressing all of these whistleblowers like they did in COVID, because if they don't control the dissidents, then they can't control the narrative. And that threatens the entire political structure that they have.
Okay, well, Cynthia, it's always great to speak with you. Really enjoyed it today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Don.
The Justice Department sued 6 U.S. states today for failure to show clean voter rolls. Stay tuned for that after.
大提琴不仅仅是一件乐器，它是有生命、有感情的，需要我们精心的照顾。往往我们一个小小的动作，可能都会对人情绪产生微妙的影响。天音的品牌是福星，我们对于传统的理念很荣幸被神韵艺术团选为指定供应商。时间是酿造音色的不可替代的陪伴。我跟大提琴已经有60多年的友情了，每一把琴都有它自己的个性，熟悉它，才能真正发挥它的潜力。 所以，我希望给你的每一把琴，都是首先我所信任的。
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Justice Department today announced that it's suing 6 U.S. states, including California and New York, for failure to provide voter registration lists. Other states involved are Michigan, Minnesota, New Hampshire, and Pennsylvania. In a statement, the department said federal lawsuits were filed in each of the respective states for allegedly not responding to a request to turn over the lists. Attorney General Pam Bondi said in the statement, quote, "Every state has a responsibility to ensure that voter registration records are accurate, accessible, and secure." According to the statement, the Civil Rights Act allows the Attorney General to request and inspect the records. And the Voter Rights Act permits the AG to ensure that states have proper and effective voter registration programs. Britain's Navy shadows Russian ships to traversing through British seas, with a keen eye on protecting critical infrastructure. Germany called for effective deterrence by NATO against Russian incursions and highlighted the threat of space warfare. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more.
The British Royal Navy said UK crews have shadowed a Russian warship and a freighter through UK seas. It comes amid warnings that Moscow is sending a rising number of vessels through British waters. UK Defence Minister Luke Pollard said the Royal Navy monitors Russian movements 24/7, ensuring the security of Britain's territorial waters and vital undersea cables. He said this is a clear demonstration that the UK stands firm with NATO allies in deterring Russian aggression. The operation took place amid tensions between Moscow and NATO countries after a series of suspected Russian incursions into NATO airspace. Poland downed drones that violated its airspace on September 10th as Russia launched a wave of aerial attacks on Ukraine. Russian pilots later staged a 12-minute incursion into Estonian airspace. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz called for effective deterrence by NATO in response to repeated airspace violations by Russia.
Now, we will not allow these incursions to continue, and we will take all necessary measures to effectively deter these airspace violations, these incursions by the Russian army.
NATO warned Russia on Tuesday that it would use all necessary military and non-military tools to defend itself. Merz said he found NATO's position on the matter absolutely right. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius said Russia is currently tracking 2 Intelsat satellites used by the German military. He said Russia and China have the capability to engage in space warfare and already occupy strategic positions in space, adding that they can jam, blind, manipulate, or kinetically disrupt satellites. Europe lags behind the United States, China, and Russia in space. For decades, Europe has relied upon the US for its security in space, but the Trump administration's America First policies, plus a commercial market that is growing exponentially, have prompted Europeans to rethink their approach. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News.
Amazon is ordered to pay $2.5 billion in a lawsuit. Most of it will be for reimbursing Prime memberships. Find out more about that after the break.
I go by Jackie. I'm 44 years old. I had 3 kids at the time and single mother. I was working 60 hours a week, still couldn't pay the bills. skip meals so that they could eat. It's been hard because one thing falls into place, 10 things fall out of place. You know, I just can't do this alone and make it work.
1 in 5 children face hunger in America, and food costs are rising. But everyone needs nourishing food to thrive, and they can when we work together so our neighbors can feed their families. Call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Together, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks, dedicated volunteers, and the monthly support of people like you, we can fill plates with nutritious food for families across America.
One day my mother came over to my house and said, "There's a meeting at the pantry." I said, "Okay," and I went. There were some ladies in there. They were from the food bank. They asked several questions. Some of those were about me and my story, but it helped me to open up a little bit.
We're getting closer to the day when no one in America faces hunger, but we can't do it without you. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of people facing hunger, from coast to coast and in your own community. And when you give by credit card, we'll send you this exclusive canvas grocery bag to show you are a part of a movement of supporters working together to help end hunger.
I have people that I can trust. I have hope.
Please call now or make your monthly donation at helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double in impact.
We come from a long line of farmers, and there's a sense of pride with being part of these multi-generational businesses. But there's also a significant amount of pressure. My senior year of high school, my dad made the decision that this world no longer needed him in it. I don't know if he was overwhelmed by the bills and checks that weren't going to be coming in because of the strawberries dying off, but it breaks my heart that my dad made a permanent decision for a temporary issue. Don't feel like you have to go through it alone.
Farmers have to take care of their physical and their mental health, because what's a farm without a farmer?
In the mornings, that's my time. Watching the sun come up, I can have a cup of coffee and exercise if I want to. It helps me start the day with a sense of gratitude.
Yay!
Every day is a new opportunity. Don't forget to check in on yourself. Love, your mind.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump meeting with Turkish President Erdogan at the White House today. Trump urges Erdogan to stop buying Russian oil and says he could drop certain sanctions on Turkey. President Trump is expected to sign an executive order on the TikTok deal, and the president floating further executive action after the ICE facility shooting. The Trump administration announces that it will use Elon Musk's artificial intelligence chatbot for federal agencies. The announcement follows this summer's public spat between the tech titan and President Trump. Amazon is ordered to pay $2.5 billion in a lawsuit. Most of it will be for reimbursing Prime memberships. The U.S. reports intercepting 4 Russian military planes off Alaska today. How Washington is responding. The British Royal Navy shadows Russian ships traversing through British seas, with a keen eye on securing the waters and critical infrastructure. Germany called for deterrence by NATO against Russian incursions.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
And thank you for staying with us. President Trump is expected to sign executive orders meant to clear the way for the completion of the TikTok deal and crack down on political violence. NTD's Washington correspondent Mari Otsu has more on this.
President Trump today is expected to sign an executive order that would pave the way towards a deal to keep TikTok alive in the U.S. In his first term, the president called for the app to be banned, but he's since changed course, delaying the ban 4 times, now until December. And according to a senior White House official, this expected EO today will confirm that the TikTok deal complies with America's national security standards. The deal entails the American tech company Oracle serving as a security provider and storing American data. Take a look.
User data will be stored on servers operated by Oracle in the United States, protected from surveillance or interference by foreign adversaries. And the algorithm, I know this is a question many of you have had, will be secured, retrained, and operated in the United States.
The White House has been touting this as a historic deal, saying that businesses using TikTok will generate as much as $178 billion within the U.S. over the next 4 years. However, some lawmakers have been expressing concerns over this deal about TikTok's potential ties to the CCP. Points of concern have been about the CCP continuing to control the app through its algorithm and the CCP's access to American user data posing a large national security threat. However, President Trump says that the app will be owned by majority American investors. Take a look.
We have great American patriots that are buying it, very, very substantial people that love our country, and they're very smart technologically, and they will not let anything bad happen to TikTok.
Meanwhile, President Trump last night responded to the Dallas ICE facility shooting by announcing that he will sign another executive order this week to, quote, dismantle domestic terrorism networks. He also drew attention in that announcement to the anti-ICE messaging written on the shell casings from the shooting. And while it remains unclear exactly what this executive order will entail, the president said this earlier today about rhetoric and political violence in the U.S. Watch.
Radical left rhetoric. The radical left is causing the problem. They're out of control, and it's going to get worse, and ultimately it's going to go back on them. I mean, bad things happen when they play these games.
The shooting is coming less than 2 days after President Trump signed yet another executive order on Monday night, which designated Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. Don, back to you.
Okay, Mari, thank you. New details revealed today about the deadly shooting at the ICE facility in Dallas. Officials say the shooter's game plan was to target ICE agents.
He also hoped his actions would give ICE agents real terror of being gunned down. And he did this to induce constant stress in their lives. He hoped his actions would terrorize ICE employees and interfere with their work, which he called human trafficking. And this, what he did, is the very definition of terrorism.
Acting U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Texas, Nancy Larson, said search warrants were served in connection with the sniper. At this time, they believe he very likely acted alone. A note found at his home seems to confirm that. Larson said other messages were found that indicated the shooter's game plan was to target ICE, while trying to minimize damages to detainees. One detainee was killed in the shooting, and Larson said 2 other detainees are still receiving treatment for their injuries. Larson also said they found no evidence that the suspect had membership in any group, and no other government agencies were mentioned. But she said he did express hatred for the federal government and appears to have deleted digital evidence. President Trump met with Turkish President Erdogan at the White House today. Their talks centered around the wars in Ukraine and Gaza. NTD's correspondent in Washington, Jack Bradley, joins us. Jack, what more do we know about their meeting?
Yeah, hey, Don. Well, this is Erdogan's first visit to the White House in about 6 years. Their talks took place behind closed doors, but we do know that the U.S. and Turkey are now both on the same page as far as Syria. The leadership there, they both back it. But they're at odds of, obviously, over the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza. This week, Erdogan said that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. He even spoke up for Hamas terrorists who still have about 48 civilian hostages from the October 7th terror attack on Israel. 20 of those are still believed to be alive. Now, President Trump recently met with several leaders on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, and that's where he presented a 21-step plan for peace in Gaza and the Middle East. And Trump said that, sitting next to Erdogan today, that they're close to ending the war in Gaza. Take a look.
I had a great meeting with the leaders of that area, of that region, generally speaking, the Middle East. We had a great meeting the other day at UNGA, as you know, and I think we're close to getting some kind of a deal done. Yeah.
Now, during Trump's first term, tensions were a little high with Turkey. He imposed sanctions in 2020 on Turkey for purchasing missile systems from Russia. Turkey is a NATO member, but also has a close relationship with Russia. U.S. officials said at the time that Turkey's use of Russia's equipment could be used to gather data on the capabilities of American F-35 fighter jets. And that information could end up in Russian hands. Trump then stopped Turkey from buying the F-35, and Trump suggested that the U.S. could lift those sanctions and potentially allow Turkey to not only buy the F-35, but also F-16 military jets and the Patriot missile system. Trump says that he wants Turkey to stop buying oil and gas from Russia in return. Take a look.
I'd like to have him stop buying any oil from Russia while Russia continues this rampage against Ukraine. And they've been fighting. They've lost millions of lives already. And for what? You know, for what? It's disgraceful. And I said yesterday, let it keep going because their economy is absolutely terrible right now. And I think it's a shame that they're doing that, killing a lot of people unnecessarily. 7,818 people were killed last week, mostly military people, their people and Ukrainians. More Russians, actually, than Ukraine, a little bit more. They really respect Erdogan. I do. And I think he could have a big influence if he wants to. Right now, he's very neutral. He likes being neutral. So do I like being neutral. But he's somebody that, if he got involved, the best thing he could do is not buy oil and gas from Russia. If he did that, that would be probably the best thing.
Now, keep in mind, Turkey isn't the only NATO member purchasing Russian oil. This is a pretty big issue coming about in the news right now. We have France, Spain, Hungary, Slovakia, Belgium. These are the top importers of Russian oil that are based in Europe. President Trump announced this during a speech at the UN General Assembly, pretty much calling them out in front of the entire world. Take a look.
China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil. But inexcusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy and Russian energy products, which, as you know, I found out about 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't happy. Think of it. They're funding the war against themselves. They can't be doing what they're doing. They're buying oil and gas from Russia while they're fighting Russia. It's embarrassing to them, and it was very embarrassing to them when I found out about it, I can tell you that.
Now, going forward, we may see some changes in the war in Ukraine and in Gaza with the pressure of Erdogan over in Turkey. Erdogan, alongside Trump in the Oval Office, said that this is a different period of U.S.-Turkey relations. Don.
Okay, Jack, thank you. Amazon is ordered to pay $2.5 billion in a lawsuit. Most of it will be for reimbursing Prime membership. Stay tuned for that and more when we come back.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretane Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretane Black Ginseng. Order now at puretane.com.
So at the age of 5, I was sexually molested. I had my first child at the age of 15 and became homeless at the age of 16. The scariest part about not having a place to live was having a child and not having a place to live. and not knowing where our meal was going to come from and where we're going to sleep. To be homeless as a teen, I didn't ask for that.
No young person should ever have to worry about having a safe place to sleep at night, or a warm meal to eat, or whether anyone cares about them. 1 in 10 young adults will experience a form of homelessness this year, and that's unacceptable. But the good news is there is an organization making a big difference, Covenant House.
Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night.
For over 50 years, Covenant House has been helping youth in crisis.
It was pretty tough. But Covenant House really helped me and really helped mold me into the woman I am today.
Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life. They gave me the love that I needed. They just really genuinely just wanted to help me succeed, and I'm succeeding.
Your $19 monthly gift is urgently needed to reach other young people who are facing unimaginable situations. Call or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
Your support makes the work of Covenant House possible. Thank you for caring.
I trod on my glasses yesterday, and I had to pay up front for a new pair that I can't even pick up for another 10 days. So I looked for another way, and I found Select Specs. I ordered online. My new glasses just arrived this morning, and I can pay over the next few weeks. This is the way to buy glasses.
See now, pay later with Select Specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options, only at selectspecs.com.
The White House's Office of Management and Budget has asked federal agencies to prepare for a reduction in force of non-statutory programs as Senate Democrats maintain their position of forcing a government shutdown. Our Washington correspondent Luis Eduardo Martinez has the details.
The President of the United States is saying, I'm going to take away your health care, and if you stand up for that, well, then I'll turn around and lay off people, fire workers.
Senate Democrats who refused to extend government funding past September 30th are now blaming President Trump for taking preemptive action on an imminent government shutdown by preparing a reduction in force of non-essential federal government personnel. The Office of Management and Budget's letter to federal agencies seeks to rein in spending in preparation for a lapse in funding that may start on October 1st if Senate Democrats refuse to fund the government.
Well, let's be clear about where we are. House Republicans passed a continuing resolution last week to keep the government funded and open. There is not one legitimate reason that Democrats should not support a continuing resolution. They have voted for it every time when Joe Biden and Barack Obama were president.
The messaging from Democratic leadership has been to portray the expiration of COVID-era healthcare tax credits as a Republican choice to cut healthcare, despite the fact that it was Democrats who set the expiration of those premiums back in 2021 through their Inflation Reduction Act reconciliation bill.
Republicans have made their intentions clear as it relates to healthcare of the American people. They want to destroy it. Republicans have spent the entire year destroying the health care of the American people. Our position is clear. Cancel the cuts, lower the costs, save health care.
Republican leadership remains open to discuss some form of extension of these health care credits. Senate Democrats will have another chance at avoiding a government shutdown next week when the Senate will likely vote again on the House-passed continuing resolution.
A lot of these folks get auto-enrolled. The payments are made directly to the insurance companies. Like I said, this is a program that needs reform, but I think everybody is willing to sit down and talk about how to make that happen in a context where it should be discussed, not as a hostage to keep the government open. I mean,
it's important to note that despite being in the majority in both chambers, Republicans have conceded to maintaining current levels of government spending instead of reducing them. President Trump supports congressional Republicans' efforts to maintain the government open and avoid unnecessary reductions in force of the federal government. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
The Trump administration has announced that it will use Elon Musk's artificial intelligence chatbot for federal agencies. According to the General Services Administration, the federal government will have access to the Grok 4 and Grok 4 Fast service for the next 18 months. The GSA said access to AI tools will enable the Trump administration to modernize federal government operations. Over the summer, Musk and President Trump had a public spat over Trump's Republican-backed One Big Beautiful Bill. Last weekend, Musk met with Trump at the memorial for assassinated conservative influencer Charlie Kirk in Arizona. The two sat next to one another at one point and shook hands. The Justice Department today announced that it's suing 6 U.S. states, including California and New York, for failure to provide voter registration lists. Other states involved are Michigan, Minnesota, New Hampshire, and Pennsylvania. In a statement, the department said federal lawsuits were filed in each of the respective states for allegedly not responding to a request to turn over the lists. Attorney General Pam Bondi said in the statement, quote, "Every state has a responsibility to ensure that voter registration records are accurate, accessible, and secure." According to the statement, the Civil Rights Act allows the Attorney General to request and inspect the records, and the Voter Rights Act permits the AG to ensure that states have proper and effective voter registration programs. Disney is facing legal threats from a group of shareholders over its suspension of Jimmy Kimmel, following his comments on the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Lawyers representing labor and press groups, including Reporters Without Borders and the American Federation of Teachers, say Disney has 5 days to release internal documents or face a lawsuit. They argued the decision may have violated shareholder interests and free speech principles, especially with 25% of ABC affiliates still refusing to air Kimmel's show. The move triggered a $4 billion drop in Disney's market value last week. Disney has not publicly responded to the demands. Kimmel's Tuesday's return drew over 6 million viewers in a 10-year ratings high, compared to his usually average of around 1.5 million viewers nightly. President Trump is now teasing a lawsuit against ABC following Jimmy Kimmel's return. Trump says he's going to, quote, test ABC out, saying that Kimmel's show could potentially count as a major illegal campaign contribution, as the president calls it a, quote, arm of the Democratic National Committee. In Kimmel's return monologue Tuesday night, Kimmel says that he never intended to make light of Charlie Kirk's killing, but Vice President J.D. Vance says in his response this, listen.
He didn't actually say sorry to Charlie Kirk or his family. And the reason that so many people, including me, were so upset with what Jimmy Kimmel said is that he accused Charlie Kirk's murderer of being a MAGA or a right-wing American. It wasn't a joke. It was straight up disinformation. And I really wish Jimmy Kimmel would apologize for it.
President Trump has already secured $16 million from ABC back in December 2024 as part of the settlement of a defamation lawsuit that the president brought against the network. Meanwhile, a spokesperson for Turning Point USA wrote on X yesterday that Jimmy Kimmel's comments on his show were not sufficient and lacked an apology to Kirk's family. This is after ABC suspended Kimmel's show before reinstating it on Tuesday. President Trump has since criticized ABC on Truth Social for allowing the show back on air. Turning Point USA is on its nationwide campus tour once again after the assassination of its founder, Charlie Kirk. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin honored Kirk's legacy yesterday during a stop at Virginia Tech. He told thousands of students they will carry forward the movement that Kirk built there. Here's the look.
But see, the truth is that the question that has been asked over and over again is, who will be the next Charlie? And as I look out in this room and I see thousands of you, I want to repeat the best answer that I have heard. You will be the next Charlie. All of you. And that is something to take home tonight.
Youngkin said Kirk left behind a blueprint to advance truth in the face of evil. Youngkin also recalled Kirk's faith, telling students they're lights that chase out darkness. And he praised Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica, who has taken up the role of Turning Point CEO. He called her an extraordinary leader with the courage of a lion and the heart of a saint. Last year, an illegal immigrant with a commercial driver's license allegedly caused a multi-car pileup while driving an 18-wheeler in California. The crash injured several people, including a 5-year-old girl who had to be airlifted to the hospital. Now her father is speaking out. Marcus Coleman says his daughter's injuries were severe and included skull fractures and a broken femur. Coleman says the injuries have resulted in her inability to walk, talk, or eat normally. The father says his 5-year-old was in a coma for 3 weeks and required a 6-month hospital stay. Last month, ICE arrested the suspect in Fresno after a warrant was issued for his arrest. The Indian national will remain in ICE custody pending immigration proceedings. According to ICE, the suspect crossed the southern border illegally in October 2022 and was released into the U.S. last month. Another illegal alien was charged with 3 counts of vehicular homicide for a semi-truck crash in Florida. President Trump is now signing executive orders in the Oval Office. We're going to take a look at that.
So those 2 things, and we have some executive orders today to sign that are very important for the country. And we'll start off with one that's a proclamation, and yes, sir. Want to do that, Will?
Yes, sir. So today is Gold Star Mothers and Families Day. This is an annual proclamation. This is to commemorate the fallen, those who have died for all of our freedoms and for our country, and for their families who have suffered such grievous losses. But this is a proclamation commemorating Gold Star Mothers and Gold Star families.
Yeah, and they're great people. Incredible people, what they've had to go through. Very few people could have gone through this kind of thing. Gold Star. Okay, thank you very much. He'll put it over here, Steve.
Next, sir, we have an executive order on TikTok. From the first days of your administration, you've charged a team from your administration, led by Vice President Vance, with ensuring that we can preserve TikTok as a platform for the 170 million Americans who use it, while ensuring that their data is properly protected as required by law. With this executive order, you will be effectively bringing into effect the agreement that will save TikTok and ensure that it can operate safely and securely.
So this is interesting because I had a very good talk with President Xi. A lot of respect for him. Hopefully he has a lot of respect for me too. And we talked about TikTok and other things, but we talked about TikTok, and he gave us the go-ahead. You know, it's run by American investors and American companies, great ones, great investors, the biggest. You don't get bigger, I don't imagine. And maybe I'll have JD. JD was very much involved and in charge of it. And maybe I'll have you say a few words about the deal. He would report back, and the points of the deal, I think, are great for our country. So JD, do you want to give it a little talk, please?
Yes, sir. Yeah, so thank you, sir, for your leadership and for your help. We really couldn't have done this without the president actually ushering this deal over the finish line. There was some resistance on the Chinese side, but the fundamental thing that we wanted to accomplish is that we wanted to keep TikTok operating, but we also wanted to make sure that we protected Americans' data privacy as required by law, both because it's the right thing to do, but also because it's a legal requirement of the law that was passed last year by Congress. So we think that we were able to do that. Of course, we're going to keep on working at it, but this deal really does mean that Americans can use TikTok, but actually use it with more confidence than they had in the past, because their data is going to be secure and it's not going to be used as a propaganda weapon against our fellow citizens. We're very excited about it. We appreciate the cooperation of everybody involved, and it's a big day.
And I think I can say that especially the young people, they really wanted this to happen. They did not want to have TikTok close. And I got, a little used to TikTok. I used it myself during the campaign, and it was very successful because you know how I did with the young voter. And Charlie helped me a lot too. And he said to me, you should go on TikTok. And it actually had, because we got record votes with the young voter, as you know, for the election. So I was a little bit prejudiced in that way toward TikTok. It was very good and very meaningful. But we have American investors taking it over, running it, highly sophisticated, including Larry Ellison. And Oracle, I guess, is going to play a very big role in terms of security, safety, and everything else. So we have very good controls. And literally, I would get a call from friends of mine who were fathers of young people saying, could you do me a favor? Could you get it approved, please? My son is driving me crazy. So we're getting it done, and they have a big audience, and we have great American investors. And here's your final copy. TikTok. You know, maybe if you want, we could take a couple of questions on TikTok, and then we're going to get onto something completely different. Okay? Yeah.
Mr. President,
Jeff?
Mr. Vice President, you mentioned that China was resistant. Can you describe where China is now? Are they fully on board with this?
They're
or
on
is there
board.
anything more?
I spoke with President Xi. We had a good talk. I told him what we were doing, and he said, go ahead with it.
On the algorithm, it's still being leased coming from China. Are you satisfied that there's no security concerns for the
Yeah,
US?
I am. I really am.
That it would push disruptive
The
content?
biggest reason is that it's owned by Americans, and very sophisticated Americans, and people that love the country, and very smart Americans too. So they don't want anything like that to happen. Yes, please.
Thank you. Is there any operational relationship with Chinese entities or staff to execute the deal?
With who?
With the Chinese?
I don't think so. Not that I know. No, we're going to be. This is going to be American operated, all the way, and great respect for President Xi, and I very much appreciate that he approved the deal, because to get it done properly, we really needed the support of China and the approval of China. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. President, now that Americans will have operational control, do you want to see the algorithm suggest more MAGA-related content prioritized?
I always like MAGA-related. If I could, I'd make it 100% MAGA-related. It's actually a good question, but I would, yeah, if I could make it 100% MAGA, I would, but it's not going to work out that way, unfortunately. No, everyone's going to be treated fairly. Every group, every philosophy, every policy will be treated very fairly. Thank you.
Mr. President, do you know the valuation? You know the American company is going to be valued in the billions?
Well, they valued it very highly. They're paying a big number. Do you want to talk, Scott? Do you want to say something about value?
Well, I'll let the Vice President, and then I can follow up.
And you'll say something.
Sure. Well, first of all, I would say all credit goes to the Secretary of the Treasury. Couldn't have got it done without Scott. Also couldn't have got it done without Sean Cooksey on my team, so thanks to them. The company will be valued around $14 billion. We actually think this is a good deal for investors, but ultimately the investors are going to make the determination about what they want to invest in and what they think is a proper value. The most important thing is that it does protect Americans' data security. It ensures TikTok is still accessible. And on this question of the algorithm, which we've heard this a lot, what this deal ensures is that the American entity and the American investors will actually control the algorithm. We don't want this used as a propaganda tool by any foreign government. We want to make sure that our people and our investors actually make these decisions based on what's good for their business, as opposed to what's good for another government's propaganda arm. So that's what we've done with this deal. I think it's very good for the American people. And as the president said, young people love this. We actually want everybody to access this, whether they're MAGA or not. We just want it to be fair. We want it to be fair to everybody, and we think that's what's going to happen with this new arrangement.
Well, the U.S. government...
And just to follow up on the Vice President, there were two pieces to the transaction. The Vice President's office has worked since the spring for the commercial transaction between the investor groups, and then Treasury and a group including the Vice President's office were in Madrid 2 weeks ago to negotiate with the Chinese, and it was a result of President Trump's close relationship with Party Chair Xi that we were able to get this across the line. We created a framework for Party Chair Xi to agree, and then on the leaders' call, Xi and President Trump discussed the final arrangement. So it was 1-2, and that was the final piece.
Will the U.S. government get any kind of annual payment as a result of this deal?
Taxes. It's going to make money, and we're going to get a lot of money in taxes. And you know, China wanted to see this go. This is a great legacy for China too. And, I thought President Xi was great in terms of his approval. We probably could have done it a different way, but it wouldn't have been the same. It wouldn't have been the same security at all. But I appreciated that he approved it.
So nothing aside from taxes. There's no part of the deal that is like a payment to the U.S. government.
Well, we're going to be announcing different things, but the U.S. comes out great, and I think China comes out great because they're going to have a very important legacy, and they have many other deals. You know, they have deals with us, and they have deals in here in this country. And, you know, they want to be treated fairly also.
So, Mr. President and Mr. Vice President, the U.S. company could change the algorithm to push different content? Is that?
The U.S. company will have control over how the algorithm pushes content to users, and that was a very important part of it. We thought it was necessary for the national security element of the law. We also just think it's important to protect American users. Again, we want users to use this platform the way they want to. We want the business to make decisions about content based on the interests of the business and based on the interests of the users, and that's what we think will happen with this new arrangement.
And they're paying a lot of money, and I think hopefully it's going to be a great deal. They're very sophisticated people. You'll see a list. Have you seen a list yet of the people? Well, you've been reading about it. It's. I know Michael Dell's involved, and Rupert Murdoch's involved, and a lot of. And let's see, we have probably 4 or 5 absolutely world-class investors that love the country, and they made a lot of money with the country, and. Many of them are in a somewhat related business, so it works out pretty well. And they're going to be very careful about all of these questions that you've been asking.
Who else beyond Dell and Murdoch?
Well, it's a blue chip group of investors, and we'll be announcing more about who exactly is involved in the deal in the days to come.
Oracle's playing a very big part.
That's right, sir.
And Oracle really understands this. And I think they're actually, and they've been involved for quite a while running it for the people, the previous people. And so it's really, I think it's going to be very well protected. Very, very prestigious deal, actually.
On that point, Mr. President, as the President said, Oracle has actually had a role in housing the data for a long time, even when the entity was controlled by the ByteDance organization in China. So Oracle had a pretty interesting perspective on what was necessary to actually create true data privacy protections for Americans. They were a very important part of getting this thing done.
Mr. President, you told us a couple of weeks ago you thought that the security concerns were overrated, but were there legitimate concerns when it comes to safety?
From my standpoint, no, because the people that own it are, they're not China-centric, they're USA-centric, and they're very smart people. I guess you could say it about everything. Everything is, what's secure nowadays? Things that you think are totally secure turn out to not to be, but I think in this case, it's going to be as secure as you can be because of the ownership and the people. And they have a big investment, it's to their advantage to make sure it's good and safe. Yeah. Anybody else? Do you have a question? No, behind you?
Well, I just want to say, do you think this move and getting this deal done, Mr. President, do you think this honors the legacy like Charlie Kirk? You mentioned that he specifically pushed you to get involved with TikTok in your campaign, helped you win young voters. Do you think this deal honors him in a way?
Well, I think it's a good thing. It's a good sign. We're doing very well, as you know, with the trade deals. We're doing very well with China and a lot of them. We were never treated properly. We were for 4 years, actually, but we were never treated very properly by other countries. And we're doing well. We've never done this well. We have, because of the tariffs that are coming in, the deals that are being made, $950 billion in one case. $950 billion, where previously they paid nothing. We have, as you know, in Japan, it's $550 billion. South Korea's $350 billion. That's up front. And one of the things I can say, I announced it lightly before, but we're taking in tremendous amounts of money with tariffs. We've never seen anything like it. No country's ever seen anything like it. I'm going to devote a little bit of that money, a little bit of the tariff money to our farmers. Our farmers have been incredible. They're the ones that let us survive and eat and enjoy our lives, right? Eat too much, maybe in some cases, like mine. But I will tell you, we're going to take some of the tariff money, relatively small amount, but a lot for the farmers. And we're going to help the farmers out a little bit because during this transition period, a period where we're taking in incredible amounts of money, we'll have a little bit of a shortfall with the farmers until the tariffs kick in, because they haven't kicked in for the farmers yet. And I decided before, and I spoke to all of the people here, that I want to make a contribution out of the tariff money, a small percentage of it, but it's a lot for the farmers. It'll make the farmers feel very good, just to help them through the transition. And ultimately, they're going to be making a fortune. They will be one of the top in the whole world in terms of a percentage gotten from the tariffs we're taking in. But we have so much coming in, it's a very small thing. But I want to in fact, just get the word out to the farmer, because they'll be struggling until the transition is complete. Then after that, they're going to do, I think, better than they've ever done before. Last time I said, get yourself a larger tractor and more land. And that was when they were doing very poorly. And they ended up doing that, and they did very well. That was with the deal we made with China. Unfortunately, Biden forgot about the deal, and he never enforced. I enforced it till the end, and China was very honorable. But when Biden came in, he didn't enforce it. So when you don't enforce a deal, they don't do it. So it was terrible. Biden was very bad to the farmers of our country. So we're going to be doing that. It's an honor to do it, too. Brian, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just going to say, what's your message to the millions of small businesses here in the U.S. that really rely on TikTok to reach their end user and to market their service and their products?
Well, thank you for that question, because honestly, we were getting hit up. They use it for virtual advertising, and they pay very little for it and nothing for it. And small businesses have become very successful because of TikTok. And we didn't think of that, when everyone's saying, oh, TikTok and this and that. But over the last 6 months, I was called by so many people saying they're going to go out of business if they can, because they use it virtually as a advertising tool. And without it, they wouldn't have anything. They wouldn't be able to get the word out about their good product or whatever it is they're selling. So it's a very important thing for small business. It's another reason I wanted to do the deal so badly. So let's go to another subject now, if we might, okay? And Will,
Mr. President,
please.
can I ask you about farmers? About the farmers?
Yes, go ahead.
What does that look like? Is that going to be direct checks to farmers, or is it going to be
Well, we haven't
taxes?
decided that. We'll be dealing with Brooke later, and the Secretary of Agriculture, and we'll figure out how to get money to the farmers. And again, this comes out of the large amount, hundreds of billions of dollars of tariff money that's pouring into the country. The tariffs, remember when I said a long time ago, I said it's the greatest word, it's my favorite word in the world. Then I had to say, I was forced to say other things, and of course, rightfully so. Love, family, religion. So I think I put tariff number 5. I was forced because the fake news did a big number on me. It's one of those little, but let's say it's my 5th favorite word, the word tariff. But it's making our country very rich. And when our country is rich, I'm able to help the farmers, and I'm able to help even other countries that are in trouble, But we're able to help people that are in trouble. Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. It's all a benefit of this tremendous amount. And I heard numbers coming in today, Scott, where the numbers were very high, right?
The economic numbers were off the charts, sir.
Unfortunately, right? Because this is the only country in the world where you announce great numbers and the stock market goes down. Because when you announce great numbers, they immediately want to take that success away by raising the interest rates. Why can't you announce great numbers and let them lower the interest rate so you can make numbers? This is the only country in the world. I don't know if you heard. Could you just tell them what the number was? And how
It was 3.88% growth, the biggest in years. And the important thing is the president says this is going to be non-inflationary growth, just like it was in his first term. So strong growth, low inflation, real wage gains. And to the question on small business optimism under President Trump last week hit a multi-year high. So small businesses, Main Street is back under President Trump.
But isn't it crazy? So I saw the market was down a little bit today. I mean, in all fairness, I don't feel guilty because we've set every record you can imagine. But it was down, and I say, oh, the numbers must be good. Meaning the growth numbers are phenomenal. And again, this is during, but a little bit of the heavy, the really success and the money pouring into our country through the tariffs. And I just say, why can't we have great numbers and lower the interest rates so we have even greater numbers? So people were saying, oh, the numbers are so good, they're going to have to raise interest rates. That doesn't have to happen. And there's no inflation. We have really, the only thing we have is great success. We're having unbelievable success. So the numbers are much higher than anticipated, except for by me and Scott and some of the other people. And they'll get a lot higher than that, too. But I don't want to, every time we have good numbers, say, let's take all the juice out by raising interest rates. It's so backwards. It's so backwards.
Well, Mr. President, they don't appreciate the importance of the third leg of your stool, because trade, taxes, and deregulation allows for significant upside growth without inflation. So eventually the people at the Fed will be able to focus on this like Alan Greenspan did in the 90s. You can have strong growth and low inflation, and I think we can get the stock market up, Wall Street, Main Street, both doing well.
And we want low interest rates. There's no reason that every time we announce these record numbers, these numbers are way above projections by, you know, all the great geniuses out there. And I knew this was going to happen. So they had 71 different people, and only 2 got it right. Me and another gentleman from, I think, my wonderful Wharton School of Finance, actually. So anyway, but I really want you to look at that. Every time we have good numbers, they say this is a good time because they're guarding against inflation that may happen in 2 years from now. We have to change. We have to change our thinking. We should be rewarded for good numbers, not penalized.
So, Mr. President, is that 3.8? Is that the start of a 3% growth for the
Well,
entire year?
you know, the number was projected at 2, because we're in a little bit of a transition period, but that transition period's ending faster than we thought on tariffs. The money coming in is much greater than people thought, and there's no inflation, essentially. There's no inflation. We just went through the worst inflation in the history of our country under Sleepy Joe Biden. He was sleeping, and the inflation was really bad, worst ever. They say 48 years, I'll take that too, but I think it was probably the worst inflation we ever had because of spending and energy going through the roof and everything else. By the way, energy is way down. And you're going to really be impressed when you hear what happened today with President Erdogan of Turkey. I think it's great for both countries. I think it's great. We have great relationships with a lot of countries. And you may be even more happy when you find out, because we spoke with Bibi Netanyahu today, and we spoke to all the leaders in the Middle East, who are great people, and we're getting pretty close to having a deal on Gaza, and maybe even peace, which would be the first time in about, 2,000 years, I think? In the region, I'd say the first in, Steve, what would you say, first in 2,000 years, or maybe 1,000?
Huh? 2 millennium.
It's a long time. Yeah, go ahead.
Did Erdogan agree to stop buying Russian oil? Did he?
I don't want to say that, but if I want him to, he will, yeah.
But he didn't make that assurance?
Well, I didn't say, okay, you stop, but I believe, I believe he will stop it, yeah.
Did you make a deal?
You know why? Because he can buy from a lot of other people. He can buy from a lot of other people. You know who really can't is Hungary. Hungary's got, they're landlocked, and they don't have a nice ocean where ships can sail in from all over the world. They have one pipeline coming. Because I spoke with, he's a great guy, he's a great friend of mine, but that's a harder one for them. And Slovakia too. They're sort of married to one pipeline. So I just don't want to have people go blaming them when we spoke to them at length today, and it seems like that for them it's a little. But that's not. Turkey has a lot of options. He's a great president, a very smart man, and he's going to take. He's going to do what's right. But we had a very good conversation having to do with the purchase of military equipment, etc. Any other questions?
Did you make a deal on the F-35s, Mr. President?
I will be able to easily if I want. So we may do that, yeah.
But not yet.
Well, it depends. He's going to do something for us, yeah. Please.
Is the U.S. going to lift sanctions on Turkey?
Can I ask you, we're a few days away.
By the way, here we go with this guy. Go ahead, let's go. Let's hear the question.
We're a few days away from the end of the fiscal year and a potential shutdown.
Right.
Is there going to be a government shutdown?
Could be, yeah, because the Democrats are crazed. They don't know what they're doing. They want to have the border opened up so that criminals can pour in. We're doing unbelievable borders closed and people are coming into our country legally. They continue to want to have men and women sports. They continue to want to have transgender for everyone. They want to raise everybody's taxes at a number that's not sustainable. It's the only time in the world I've ever seen a party that wants to raise taxes. I grew up in a family where I'd watch politics, and I always liked it from the time I was very young, but I'd always see politicians say, we will lower your taxes. These guys, they campaign on raising your taxes, but they want to raise taxes very substantially.
The one thing they're concerned about, look, Republicans have total control of Washington. You guys have control of the House, the Senate, there's you.
Well, when you say control, so We need 60 votes for this, and we have 53 Republicans, so we need 7 Democrats.
And those 7 Democrats and others are asking for an extension of a tax credit on people who get the Affordable Care Act and some other government-backed health care. So are you willing to negotiate on
Well,
that
what they're
issue?
really asking for is they want to pay for illegal aliens that have come into our country by the millions and get onto the rolls, and they want to pay. And our people don't want to do that. Our people are taxed enough. You know, we just approved the largest tax decrease ever in the history of our country, including the extension of the previous Trump tax cuts. The tax cuts that we just approved, they want to use those tax cuts to give the money to illegal aliens, people that came into our country illegally and that are leaving the country.
So why not
You know, there's been a
negotiate?
self-deportation because of what we've been doing that's been incredible. Okay, yeah, please.
Secretary Recep is inviting military leaders from all around the country on Tuesday. Will you also be there?
From all around the country to what?
To Virginia.
He's inviting the generals and admirals to Virginia for a big meeting. They're not sure why.
Well, I know, I love it. I mean, I think it's great. Let them be friendly. Let them be friendly with the generals and admirals from all over the world. Why, is there something? No, but is there something wrong with it?
And what is it about? Will you be there personally as well? And what is it about?
Well, I'll be there if they want me, but why is that such a big deal? I mean, the fact that we're getting along with the generals and admirals from all, remember, I'm the president of peace. It's good to get along. It's good. You act like this is a bad thing. Isn't it nice that people are coming from all over the world to be with us?
It's not particularly unusual that generals who report to the Secretary of War and then to the President of the United States are coming to speak with the Secretary of War. It's actually not unusual at all, and I think it's odd that you guys have made it into such a big story.
Is it a big story? I mean,
I don't think it is, sir.
I would think it's, no, but isn't it a good story? I mean, you know, we're respected from all over the world as a military force. You know, I rebuilt the military during my first term, even though we gave a chunk of it away to Afghanistan. But we're talking Afghanistan too, by the way, about Bagram and about that. But that's a very small amount compared to what we rebuilt it by. But I rebuilt the military, and we're very respected. We have the strongest military anywhere in the world without question. We have the greatest equipment in the world. We're selling the equipment to other countries. And a lot of generals want to be here and they want to look at they're also going to be touring equipment sites. They're going to be talking about the newest weapons, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it's great when generals and top people want to come to the United States to be with our now called Secretary of War. Does everybody like the name? I do.
You said something
Yeah,
really
please.
interesting this week about Ukraine, that you thought Ukraine could get back all the territory that Russia had taken.
Yeah, they have a shot at it because Russia.
What prompted you to change your thoughts on
Well,
that?
because I've been watching the way what Russia's been doing. I'm very dissatisfied with what Russia's doing and what President Putin is doing. I haven't liked it at all. He's killing people for no reason whatsoever. And they are doing very poorly, considering they have put it all out on the line. Their economy is going to hell. They're bombing the hell out of everything, and they're picking up a very little territory, if any. In fact, they're losing some territory. So I think it's been very bad for the reputation of Russia. This war should have been over. If this were our war, we would have had it over in 1 week. And they're getting into fourth year, Jeff. They're getting into the fourth year now. 4 years of fighting, and you see what they've taken. In the last month, they've taken very little, and you've been reporting on all the bombing, all the drones all over the place. 900 drones coming into certain areas like Kiev in one night. And with all of that work, they've taken over very little. So now I'm very disappointed in President Putin. I thought I solved 7 wars. In fact, we have a great leader coming. We have the Prime Minister of Pakistan coming and the Field Marshal. Pakistan Field Marshal is a very great guy, and so is the Prime Minister, both. And they're coming, and they may be in this room right now. I don't know, because we're late. And I said maybe they'd like to join they actually may be somewhere in the beautiful Oval Office. Yeah, please, behind you.
Quickly on Gaza, did you promise leaders this week that you would not allow Israel to annex the West Bank? And is that something that you
I will not allow Israel to annex the West Bank. No, I will not allow it. It's not going to happen.
Did you speak with Netanyahu about this directly?
Yeah, but I'm not going to allow it. Whether I spoke to him or not, I did. But I'm not allowing Israel to annex the West Bank. There's been enough. It's time to stop now, okay? Yes, please.
Jasmine Crockett recently.
Jasmine Crockett. Remember what I said? Is she a relation to the late, great Davy Crockett? I don't think so. Jasmine Crockett, let me tell you, before you even ask, she's a very low IQ person. I mean, if we ever had to pass an aptitude test, that's the one should take one because she shouldn't even be in the crowd. So I have no idea what you're going to, but I don't think we should waste our time. This is a low IQ person who I can't even believe is a congressperson. Between her and Ilman Omar and the group. You know, I met the head of Somalia. Did you know that? And I suggested that maybe he'd like to take her back, and he didn't want her. He said, "I don't want her." Okay, what else? Go ahead. You want? Let's hear what Crockett said. Go ahead.
She compared ICE raids to slave patrol. I want to ask you.
To slave?
To slave patrol. I want to ask you if you think that there should be consequences for members of Congress who make these types of comparisons or use this type of language.
Well, I think she's gone over the line, and I think a lot of the people. Look, the Democrats have become radical left lunatics. They have policies that nobody's going to buy. And, you know, I see what's going on in New York. We're going to have perhaps a communist mayor because it's split up. You know, if the people would get together and have one candidate, they'd have, I think, a pretty good chance. But it looks like maybe they're not going to do that. But we're going to end up with a communist mayor. It's not even believable, my beautiful New York. When I left New York to become president, it was a great place. But it was the beginning of bad things because we had de Blasio had just started as mayor, and I said, this guy's a real nut job. Went to Harvard to teach management, can you believe it? He went to Harvard to teach city management along with the mayor of Chicago, who went to Harvard to teach, the two of them are teaching how to manage a city manage it into hell is what they do. But that was the beginning, and now we're going to go a step further. Now we're going with the communists. Can I be honest? I think it's the greatest thing to ever happen to the Republican Party. I really do. I think if a communist takes over New York City, I think that's a gift to the Republican Party. It's sad for New York, but it's a gift. And New York will recover because, you know, sometimes you need a shock like that to straighten you out. But it's politically, it's probably a very good thing.
Mr. President, can I ask you about immigration, crime, and the World Cup? Actually, so
That's a lot of.
You have a number of cities that are pushing back against your immigration deportation move as well as your crime initiatives. Some of those cities.
I don't think they're very much.
But
pushing
some of those
back.
cities have World Cup games.
Yeah.
Seattle, San Francisco.
They're going to be very. They're going to be very secure.
But could those games move if they don't cooperate with your crime push?
Well, that's an interesting. I guess, but we're going to make sure they're safe. They're run by radical left lunatics and that don't know what they're doing. Look at Washington, D.C. I just got numbers. There's like no crime in Washington, D.C. You, Jeff, will not be mugged walking down the street. You can walk down the street with your family. You can walk down your street with your wife, your daughter, your son, and you're not going to be. We took out 1,700 career criminals that we're not allowing back. And we have this city in great shape. You know, there was a time when not long ago, when every single week you'd have at least one murder. And look what's happening with Washington. It's safe. I went to dinner in Washington just to prove a point. I gave a press conference in the middle of a street. I wouldn't say Secret Service was thrilled, but I did it, and here I am. Look, Washington, D.C. is such a great example of what can be done. We did it in 12 days. We made it very safe in 12 days, and now it's much safer than that. One other thing, I drove around Washington over the weekend, and I said, look at the difference. The grass looked great. Everything looked great. You know, we had a lot of our National Guard, and we didn't ask them to do it. They did it themselves. They're proud. They're great. And they were picking up paper. They were cleaning. The place looked really beautiful. So we have a great Washington, D.C. We, as you probably know, we're going into Memphis, and we're going into some other cities, and very soon we're going to go into Chicago. It will be safe for the World Cup. If I think it isn't safe, we'll move it into a different city. Absolutely, we'll take the world. If I think it's not, it's actually a very fair question. If I think it's not safe, we're going to move it out of that city. If, like the governor of Illinois, who is, you know, look, between last week and the week before, 11 murders, and 38 people were shot. Then he gets up and he says, this is a very safe. And then he says crime is better. The reason crime is better is because Cash put, about 5 months ago, a whole team of FBI people there to get ready for when we go in, and they've lowered it a little bit, like 20, 25%, which isn't good enough, but it's a good start. But that was only put there because they're preparing for us to go in. And they've done, by the way, they've done a good job. So then Pritzker gets up, we've lowered crime 25, it's because the FBI was there. So, no, if any city we think is going to be even a little bit dangerous for the World Cup or for the Olympics, where they have Olympic overthrow, right? But for the World Cup in particular, because they're playing in so many cities, we won't allow it to go to, we'll move it around a little bit. But I hope that's not going to happen, yeah.
Mr. President, Director Patel this morning indicated that the shooter in Dallas had been using an app to track ICE. Does your administration have any plans to take down those apps or get them removed or any?
Well, I can't tell you about that, but it tells you when they want to wear masks or they want to hide a little bit, why that's so important. But these are great patriots, the ICE, and what a tough job they have. What an unbelievably tough job they have. And think of it, what are they doing? They're taking hardcore criminals out of our country and putting them back. These were largely criminals that were given to us by Joe Biden and his group of radical maniacs that surrounded this desk, just like these people surround the desk now, but they're not maniacs, they're very solid people.
Thank you, sir.
I'm glad I prefaced it. But they're great. We have a great cabinet, we have great people, and he didn't have great people. He had terrible people. Look at Afghanistan, look at the people he had running our military, that could happen. The most embarrassing day in the history of our country was Afghanistan. And 13 young people died. They don't ever talk about the 38 that were horribly wounded with legs and arms and everything else, really horribly wounded. So the country's respected like it's probably almost never been respected before. I think we're respected at a level. And a year ago, it was a dead country. We had a dead country a year ago. This country was dying. It was really in bad shape. Let's talk about the next subject, can we?
One of the most powerful deterrents we have to violent crime is the death penalty. As you said, your administration has taken bold, decisive steps to ensure that Washington, D.C. is once again a safe and secure city for its residents and all who visit. This is a presidential memorandum that directs your Attorney General and your U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Judge Jeanine Pirro, to fully implement the death penalty here in Washington, D.C., where the evidence and facts of a case indicate that the death penalty should be used.
Okay. Everybody understand? Death penalty in Washington. You kill somebody, or if you kill a police officer, law enforcement officer, death penalty. And hopefully there won't be that. So again, it's way down. I mean, we have had week after week after week where we haven't had a murder. I said that the other day in front of the president of Poland. The press was here, and I said, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to announce that Washington, D.C. has not had a death in 4 weeks, a murder. And he looked at me, he goes, is that good or bad? He said, what kind of a place is this? But it's true for years. I mean, every week, essentially, somebody got killed or more than one. And this is a very safe city right now. We don't play games. And it's interesting. We took these careers out, career criminals. They call them careers. They left the word criminal out, but we took the careers out of here. And they're now brought back to their homes, or they're in jail, or they're in a jail in another country. And hopefully they're not coming back. And we have to maintain it. You can't just leave, and we have to maintain it. We've gotten along fairly well with the mayor. She's getting a party that hates that the city's becoming safe. I mean, they're actually criticizing her because the city's becoming safe. But this is becoming this is right now a very, very safe city. This went from the most unsafe city in the country to the safest city in the country. There's no city any safer. That's a pretty big achievement. And we really did it in 12 days. But if you add an extra week to it, that'd be nice. And I mean, you can go out to dinner. Restaurants are booming. The restaurants were dead. They were dead. Even if you got to the restaurant, then somebody would come in and hold you up. They'd hold up the whole restaurant. They go to Uber. Young ladies in the White House, they'd call Uber for protection. They'd run to the car because they were petrified to be from the entrance of their building to the car. Now they feel safe, they're in the car, and then the car gets hijacked while they're in the back of the car. This was what we were living in. We were living in hell. People that work in the White House, every time they see me, young women in particular, say, thank you, sir. And I don't even ask them about what. I know exactly. I made their lives. Now they're living in a beautiful, glamorous place called Washington, D.C. with no crime, and that's the way it should be, okay? This is the death penalty for somebody that kills people in Washington, D.C. I think it's capital. It's a very interesting capital punishment, capital city, right? It's capital. But this is our capital city. We can't allow that to happen. People come in from Iowa to look at the Lincoln Memorial and they end up getting killed. It doesn't happen anymore. It's not going to happen. And if it does happen, it's the death penalty for the person that did it. And this goes into effect.
Yes, sir.
Right? Pam, is that right?
Yes,
Could
sir.
you speak a little bit about that?
Yes, sir. Not only are we seeking it in Washington, D.C., but all over the country again. And as you saw very recently, we are now moving the inmates who were on death row, who Joe Biden or the auto pen commuted their sentences off of death row. We're moving them to supermax facilities where they will be treated like they're on death row for the rest of their lives, President Trump.
Okay, that's a big statement. Thank you very much. Okay. I see some of you shaking your heads very positively. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, fellas.
You said on the campaign trail that you
I
were
said
for
it.
the death penalty if anybody, an illegal, killed a U.S. citizen
That's
or a
right.
police officer. So this just reinforces your campaign promise.
Right. And most people really like it. And Washington, again, it's going to serve as a beacon because you have to do it. These are bad people. When you look at that guy, the guy that killed the young lady in the train in North Carolina, that he'll be in trial for years and years, years. He'll get a good lawyer somewhere along the line. Somebody will come along, and what he did to that young lady, and she went into that train scared. You know, when she went in, the way she sat down, she was scared to just be there. She just wanted to not pay any attention to anybody, just not be noticed. And she had her throat slit. We don't want that in this country anymore. We're not going to have it in this country anymore. Thank you very much. Next.
Lastly, sir, this is a presidential memorandum on countering domestic terrorism and organized political violence. In recent weeks, months, and years, we've seen a tremendous upsurge in some highly visible, but also other acts of domestic terrorism and organized political violence being perpetrated by radical, politically motivated groups all over the country. What this presidential memorandum will do is set off an administration-wide response to that, ranging from the Joint Terrorism Task Forces to other components of the Department of Justice, to the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Treasury. We're looking at interdicting these groups, preventing them from performing acts of violence, and also looking at sources of organization and funding and support that prop them up and allow them to do the acts that they have been doing.
We're looking at the funders of a lot of these groups, and you know, when you see the signs, and they're all beautiful signs made professionally. These aren't your protesters that make the sign in their basement late in the evening because they really believe it. These are anarchists and agitators, professional anarchists and agitators, and they get hired by wealthy people, some of whom I know, I guess, you know, I probably know them. And you wouldn't know it. You're at dinner with them, everything's nice, and then you find out that they funded millions of dollars to these lunatics. Steve, could you say a couple of words?
Yes,
about
Mr.
it?
President. This is a very historic and significant day. This is the first time in American history that there is an all-of-government effort to dismantle left-wing terrorism, to dismantle Antifa, to dismantle the organizations that have been carrying out these acts of political violence and terrorism. What we have seen, if you look at whether it be going back to the riots that started with Black Lives Matter and all the way through to the Antifa riots, the attacks on ICE officers, the doxing campaigns, and now the political assassinations, these are not lone, isolated events. This is part of an organized campaign of radical left terrorism. It is structured, it is sophisticated, it is well funded, it is well planned. There is really no parallel like this to anything else in the country right now. There is an entire system of feeder organizations that provide money, resources, weapons, And when they're attacking ICE officers, they're attacking federal buildings, or they're isolating public officials for harassment, doxing, intimidation, and ultimately attempted assassination, it is all carefully planned, executed, and thought through. It is terrorism on our soil. Because of this executive order, Cash and Pam are going to have the tools they need, working with Scott, to take these organizations apart piece by piece. And the central hub of that effort is going to be the Joint Terrorism Task Force, or JTTF, which sits inside the Federal Bureau of Investigation. But for those at home who are worried about terrorism in this country, they need to understand, because of President Trump's strength, because of his vision, because of his leadership, we are now going to use the entire force of the federal government to uproot these organizations root and branch. And again, that's only possible because of President Trump and his leadership.
Thank you. Steve Cash, please.
Yes, as Stephen was saying, Mr. President, thanks to your leadership, crime is going downward in a tremendous fashion, and that's what we want for every city in America. And the FBI's premier flagship enterprise, the Joint Terrorism Task Force, are honored to lead this initiative with our partners at Treasury and Homeland Security, because our citizens are being attacked by, as Stephen said, organized violence, and it's being paid for, not by them, by other people. So what we are going to do, combining forces as Scott and I have done over these last few months, is follow the money. People and organizations have collected funds and put them out into the streets of America and organized violence across our country. And thanks to your recognition of this and this executive order and the AG's leadership to lead out and prosecute these individuals, we are properly going to chase them down like the domestic terrorists that they are, and our streets and our communities are going to be safer because the JTTF and the FBI and Treasury and DHS and DOJ are going to combine forces like never before to root out this new evil that is perpetrating our criminal activities across our societies. And we are just so thankful for your leadership and recognition of it. It's not easy to do.
Good job. Thank you very much,
Who
Pam.
specifically do you want to target?
What?
Besides Antifa, is there a specific group or person you're targeting with this?
Any organized group.
Any organized
Any
group?
organized group who are committing these crimes, and we're working with the Secretary of Treasury. You know what law enforcement has told us under President Trump's leadership? He's taken the handcuffs off law enforcement. They can do their jobs now, thanks to you, President Trump, and that's what's happening. And all of these agencies that Cash mentioned, we work hand in hand together. Our prosecutors were following the money with Treasury. We're working with Homeland Security. Cash's agents, all of our agents, DEA, ATF, U.S. Marshals, combined are working, and with state and local government, to take these people off the streets who are jeopardizing lives.
Can I just illustrate this? So I was talking with Cash and Stephen about this a couple of days ago, sir. So I believe it was in Oregon where you had a federal building where there were men in black ski masks who were committing acts of violence, who were shutting down a government building. To the president's point, they don't come from nowhere. These are paid people. This is organized. They're committing acts of political terrorism on American soil. And it's time we had a government that looked out for the American people rather than the people who are committing violence against the American people.
But Madam Attorney
When you
General,
go
can
out to
comment-
Portland and you see what's happening in Portland, this is like nobody's ever seen anything like it every night. And this has gone on for years. They just burned the place down, and you know, the shop owners, most of them have left, but the few shops that are open, they just use plywood and just like 3/4-inch plywood. They don't put storefronts in because they know it's going to be burned down. These are professional agitators.
Right.
These are bad people, and they're paid a lot of money by rich people, some of whom we know. I'm sure I know some. I don't. If I knew, I wouldn't associate because I'll be in trouble. Because Pam will say, "Why are you associating with this person?" But I will tell you that these are bad people, and they're paying a lot of money, millions of dollars. But take a look at Portland sometime. These are wild. These are crazy people, and they're trying to burn down buildings, including federal buildings. And on my list of things that I want to do before we finish up with the cities, because I think we're going to whip the cities back into shape, and we have to. We cannot let our cities, and that's a small example, but it's the most violent example. It's every night, and they've done it for years. You think maybe at some point they made their point, and what are they doing? But we're going to get out there, and we're going to do a pretty big number of those people in Portland that are doing that. They're professional agitators and anarchists. They're actually anarchists, yeah.
Just so we
Go
can-
ahead, why don't you
Could
defend? Let's see you defend them, Jeff.
No, I'm not defending anyone. I just want, so that we can just explain this in our stories, could you name a couple?
You don't explain it right, though, Jeff. Go ahead, let's go. Maybe let's give you another chance. Go ahead.
Antifa, Soros,
Yeah.
what names are we talking about?
Well, Soros is a name certainly that I keep hearing. I don't know, but Soros is a name that I hear. I hear a lot of different names. I hear names of some pretty rich people that are radical left people. Maybe I hear about a guy named Reid Hoffman. Somebody's a pretty rich guy, I guess, and I hear about him. I don't know, maybe could be him, could be a lot of people. We hear the same names, but they're bad, and we're going to find out. And if they are funding these things, they're going to have some problems because they're agitators and they're anarchists. These are anarchists, really bad. Okay, yeah, please.
Mr. General, Mr. President,
can you
are you,
Who you
Mr.
with?
President,
Who you with?
I'm with the Center Square. Sarah Rodriguez is my name. Sarah, there's also, as you know, Antifa is not just a domestic terror, or now a domestic terror organization. It's also international. I know the Netherlands is looking at also designating them a terror organization.
Right.
Have you been working with your intel community and your DNI to possibly expand that to making them designating
Yes,
them an international terror organization?
we have been. Yep. It's an international. In many cases, it is international.
Mr.
Yeah.
President, on Antifa, if someone takes to the streets of America and says they're Antifa, what happens to them? What will happen to them?
Well, I'd say the maximum under the law, and we'll see. Now, if they kill somebody, we just signed a death penalty, so it depends where it is. But if they kill somebody, which they do, I mean, people are dying. You go out to Portland, people die out there. Many people have died over the years in Portland. Portland is, I don't know how anybody lives there. It's amazing. But it's anarchy out there, and that's what they want. They want anarchy, like when they attacked Seattle and took over a big percentage of the city. I was going to go out, and we were going to do a big number. They heard that, and everybody broke up all of a sudden. But, you know, you have governors that have to run that, and a lot of them don't do that. I don't like to go in. I'd rather have Pritzker's support when we go into Chicago. But if we don't have it, that's okay, too, because we're paramount, and we will do what we have to do. We're going to make Chicago safe. We're going to make we're going to make as many as we can, and usually that involves a surge. But what we did with, in the case of Chicago, by having the FBI go out there 5 or 6 months ago, we brought it down a little bit. You know, a little bit is 25%, so it's not so little, but it is when you're talking about the kind of crime and killings and murders that you hear in Chicago. But we're going to get it. Chicago's a great city. As the Union Pacific said, the head of the Union Pacific, who's a great guy, started off as a low-rung guy. He said he started at a caboose, and now he's the chairman of the Union Pacific. But he's a great guy. But he said, "Sir, don't lose Chicago." The way he said it, I said, boy, it really hit me. You know, here's a man that knows all the cities. The Union Pacific, I guess, is our largest railroad. And he knows all the cities. He's been doing it for 45 years. And he said, "Sir, don't lose Chicago." And the way he said that meant a lot to me. And we're going to go into Chicago very soon. We're going to take care of Memphis. We're going to take care of Memphis. You can't walk a block without getting shot. We're going to take care of that one. And just like we did Washington, D.C., and we're gonna do Chicago very soon. Yeah.
Mr. President, we heard there could be an indictment on James Comey. Do you know if there is an indictment, or Madam Attorney General?
I don't know. I know it's going on because I read the papers just like you do, right? So I don't know. Do you have anything to say about that?
We can't comment on that.
Yeah.
Madam Attorney General, can you comment on a New York Times? Madam
indicted?
Attorney General, can you comment on a New York Times report saying that Justice Department officials have asked attorneys to target a George Soros-funded group? And is this executive order that you just signed a part of that effort?
I'm not going to comment on whether there is or is not a pending investigation, but everything's on the table right now.
I don't think anybody has to ask, because if you look at Soros, he's at the top of every. In fact, sometimes they say, could he be involved in this many things? But he's in every story that I read. Stories that I read keep talking about Soros, and so, you know, I guess he'd be a likely candidate. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Let's go.
And that was President Trump at the White House signing executive orders, including the one to keep TikTok alive in the U.S. and reiterating that Americans will be owning the platform and that it is safe from influence from the Chinese Communist Party. All right, taking a break, Amazon is ordered to pay $2.5 billion in a lawsuit. Most of it will be for reimbursing Prime memberships. Don't go away.
I debate all day. It's what I do. But there are some things that are undebatable, like your mental health, my own mental health. I was in a dark place when my brother passed away in a car accident. I've never been more devastated than the day I lost my mom. I was depressed, miserable, in ways I never imagined. I reached out, and my sisters came, my pastor, my therapist. They helped me get through it. I found that the more I spoke up, the healthier my mind became. The chaos that was in me began to subside. I was more focused, clear. When you love your mind, you can go so much further. That's not up for debate. Find mental health resources at loveyourmindtoday.org.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanted to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you didn't. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
The U.S. reports intercepting 4 Russian military planes off Alaska. It's the latest reported threat to NATO airspace by Moscow. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has more.
The U.S. reports scrambling 9 aircraft after Russian jets neared Alaska. The Russian planes reportedly remained in international airspace and did not enter U.S. or Canadian airspace. But they did enter the Alaskan Air Defense Identification Zone. That's an area of international airspace that requires the ready identification of all aircraft for national security purposes. And Denmark also reports airspace violations by Russia. This makes it the 4th NATO member saying Russia entered the territory.
I take this very seriously. It is clear that this is a development that cannot continue. This must be stopped.
The European Union Commission is now stressing the importance of investing in a drone wall to protect the bloc.
These latest drone incursions highlight, once again, I have the impression now that I'm saying this every day on the podium, but highlight once again the work that is currently ongoing to build such a drone wall.
NATO is warning Russia that it would use all means to defend against any further breaches of its airspace. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
Many Amazon Prime members are expected to get refunds. Amazon agrees to settle a lawsuit that claims the company used tactics of manipulation. NTD's David Lam has more.
Amazon has agreed to pay $2.5 billion to settle a lawsuit over its Prime subscription service. On top of fines, the settlement includes $1.5 billion to reimburse subscribers. The company will also have to clarify its subscription terms and cancellation options. Eligible Prime members can receive $51 in compensation. Filed in 2023, the Federal Trade Commission accused Amazon of using manipulative tactics to enroll millions of users into its Prime service, at the same time making it hard for people to unsubscribe. Amazon has denied any wrongdoing. It said in a statement, "Amazon and our executives have always followed the law, and this settlement allows us to move forward and focus on innovating for customers." Millions who paid for Amazon Prime between 2019 and 2025 could automatically be refunded up to $51. Others will be able to submit claims for refunds. Eligibility depends on how many Prime perks were used, aside from free shipping. David Lamb, NTD News.
Lyft and Uber rideshare drivers rallied today in New York City. They're pushing for support for a bill that would stop app lockouts or deactivations without good reason or just cause. Drivers say it leaves them in a constant state of worry over their source of income, but Lyft says the bill would put passengers in danger. NTD's Sean Marshall has more information.
Uber and Lyft drivers in New York City rallied on Thursday to demand just cause protections from having their accounts deactivated and being locked out of the rideshare apps. The drivers are hoping for passage of a city council bill known as Intro 276, which would give them those protections. But the bill has its opponents, including Lyft and a group that advocates for the blind. They each have their own reasons for objecting.
Right now, there are over 90,000 Uber Lyft drivers at work every day in New York City, and they could lose their jobs without any notice, with no fair reason, and then have no way to appeal that firing. The drivers are left with no money and still have loans on their vehicles. They may have just paid for insurance for the year, so it's very devastating.
Intro 276 looks to end unfair deactivations for good by requiring Uber and Lyft drivers to carry the burden of proof in deactivation cases rather than drivers, a just cause standard before deactivation, 14 days notice before deactivation, documentation of prior warnings, an independent appeals process, retroactive up to 6 years, and back pay for drivers deactivated without good cause.
This is selfish controlling the people. Anything they wanted because nobody controlled the Uber and Lyft. Because they got a lot of power and $1 billion companies. They don't care. To us, anybody else, they don't care. So that's why they don't like, just kick him out like trash. That's what our big problem. That's why we're here. So try to be our rights.
Lyft sent NTD a copy of a letter from their chief policy officer to city council members that they say makes the case against the proposal. It says, most notably, the bill's proposed 14-day notice period would prevent rideshare platforms from promptly removing drivers who have been reported as engaging in unsafe conduct. For example, drivers reported for repeated unsafe driving, discrimination, or sexual harassment could be permitted to continue picking up passengers for over 2 weeks after their alleged offense, placing additional riders in harm's way. But New York City Council member Shakar Krishnan, who's sponsoring the bill, says the core issue is that drivers can lose their livelihoods without due process.
Yesterday, New Yorkers got an email from Lyft that you may have gotten too, saying that my legislation to protect for-hire vehicle drivers from being arbitrarily fired from the apps eroded safety. They are lying in this email. The fact of the matter is, the unfair deactivation of drivers, or when they're terminated from the apps with no notice or process whatsoever, when they lose their livelihood overnight, that's the most urgent issue that drivers face in the city since the medallion crisis.
This bill is so urgent because after it's passed, our drivers will have protections they are due. They will have notice before they are fired or wrongfully deactivated. They will have a chance to respond to those charges and to protect their livelihood so they don't lose their job overnight with no notice. These are some of the most essential workers of our city. That's why this bill is so important.
Lyft also notified NTD of a letter from the National Federation of the Blind of New York. This group opposes the bill, saying that the blind are often discriminated against for being blind and requiring a service animal to ride with them. They want immediate action when blind people are denied service. The bill hasn't been scheduled for a vote yet. A spokesperson for the city council told AMNY.com Introduction 276 is currently going through the legislative process, which is deliberative and allows for thorough input from all stakeholders. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
Thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back with more news, and remember to stay with us for NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. I'm Don Ma.